Hey people on Instagram, we're going to do another Spark session. If you want to really see what's going on, join us on Twitch. The URL is in the bottom there. I'm just going to keep this here going, and you can, like, if you want to chime in, we're going to do AR and learn a little bit about cool shit. So yeah. Come around to Twitch. Hey guys, on Twitch and everywhere. Stream is going to be about Vertex colors, and we're gonna do some really cool shit. I mean, tonight I'm really excited about the stream actually. I think it's gonna be really awesome. Let's see how it goes. Ah shit, I forgot to put the title. Yeah, we're gonna go in a second. Just waiting for people to get in, and I have to set up everything here. I'm again streaming with Restream for several channels. There's a watch party. Okay. Hey guys. Woo! Hello. So there's a watch party. I should be in the Spark group also on Facebook. So if you wanna watch the stream on Facebook, you should be able to do that too. Yeah. It's working. And also guys, like if you, it's Shark Week. I'm fucking around with actually fucking around with the hold on. Gotta mute this. Guys, if you are on Facebook and you want to start your watch party as well, you can do that, I suppose. So if you want to share with your friends, that's cool. And yeah, guys, so yeah, welcome. I think that's gonna be it. So tonight we're gonna get joined by Matt, and that's gonna be amazing. Like, he's obviously one of the most, I think, interesting technical artists on the community. Hello, everyone. And I'm like super looking forward to seeing what he comes up with. And until then, I just want to, thank everyone who's watching and everyone who's involved with that stream. This is now the fifth edition, so we've been at it for 5 weeks. Time passes. It is exciting, yes. And it's actually cool because we now have affiliate level on Twitch. Oh, actually, what I wanted to show you first, real quick. All right, so I'm wearing this T-shirt here. Check it out. Adversarial T-shirt. And because I saw this article today, I think, where they actually did something similar. I just want to show you that real quick. So basically the idea is that this their T-shirt also, or this T-shirt, kind of confuses AI algorithms, so that when they see you with a T-shirt, in my case they think it's a toaster. And so my T-shirt is more like an art project, I suppose, because unfortunately it's not really working as it should, because the algorithms are too smart. But like these guys here from Northeastern University, they had the same idea apparently, and they did that, but it actually works. But like, you can actually buy my T-shirt here on Sazzle. So that's the one I'm wearing, because there was a research with adversarial images done before that, and I was just like, oh, amazing, yeah, let's just put it on a poster, why not? Anyway, so that's that. Ooh. I just thought it's funny. Oh yeah, I've got to open Discord if anyone is on Discord. Woo! Shark Week, Hyperdrive. Yeah, guys, so you can also, as always, join us on Discord and keep chatting there if you want. Yeah, so I know, fashion. So for tonight's stream, actually, I was like last week we did, what did we do? I think we did a bit of vertex displacement, as always. So for tonight's stream, actually, I had a few ideas, and I want to. Oh no, hold on. One thing I wanted to talk about first. So now is the 5th time we're doing that. And it's pretty cool because now I'm actually affiliate on Twitch. So what that means is that you can do cool emotes in the chat. I don't really know how that works, to be honest. But I suppose that's something you can do now. And you can also subscribe to the channel. What that means is it works a little bit like Patreon, where the creator actually gets a tiny bit of money for the work he or she's doing. So if you want to do that, do subscribe. Obviously, I would be grateful. And the idea I had was that I'm just going to put all the source code and all the projects for every time we do a Twitch stream. I'm just going to put it on some place where it's available for the subscribers. And probably just put it on Gumroad for everyone else. So you can basically decide whether you want to support this thing weekly, like a subscription, type thing, or if you want to just watch, so they're gonna be free and free to watch and everything, just get the stuff on Gumroad if you want. But anyway, so yeah, if you want to subscribe, get that shit, make it your own, just do cool shit with it, whatever. Tell people it's yours. I don't care. All right, so again, for this week, I asked in the forum on Facebook what people want to see, because I had a lot of, I think, really exciting ideas, and I'm super excited to get Matt on the stream. Let's see how fast it goes, what we want to do today, but super excited to get Matt on the stream and seeing what he's gonna show us. Anyway, I did this poll on the group to ask people what do they want to talk about, like what interests them. It's funny, I don't know why Omi is always the first icon here. And I had a couple of ideas, and last stream actually we were talking about, again, vertex displacement, and Mark Wakefield, he had this amazing idea of using vertex colors as maps. And on the stream, I didn't even understand what he was talking about, because that was something, vertex bendy. Yeah, okay, so here's the thing, guys. Like, we have everything, please, on the third place, basically, and we can't do everything. So, like, each of those topics is so vast. Let me just change the music real quick. I want something more chill. Ambient. All right. So each of the topic is so vast that we're not going to get through that on one stream. Much less on doing several topics. So basically, what I was thinking is, oh yeah, here comes the shark again. Fucking shark, always the shark. No, I wanted to get the chat back, because actually now you should be able to see the chat of Facebook also in there. I don't know, I haven't figured that out yet completely. But anyway, so what one was GI lighting and more cool shit with vertex colors. So all right, public is chosen by actually quite a fair amount. 34 people want the second option and 43 people want the first option. So I would say let's just jump right into it, because we have a lot of shit to cover, and I think it's going to be really amazing today. So I'm really excited to seeing how that works out. All right, so we're gonna start actually with a blank slate, right? Why not? Let's start from the beginning. And I'm not gonna explain in detail how everything works, because this is stuff that we have covered extensively actually in the last few streams. So if you're interested, like if you don't, but basically anyway, like if you're missing some things and if you're not sure how stuff works, you can always rewatch the streams. They are available on Twitch and they are also available on YouTube. So if things go too fast or you feel you're not getting what I'm talking about or what people are talking about on the stream, just rewatch it as many times as you like, right? Okay, so the main thing, what we talked, it's a little bit like a story with different chapters, and I want to talk about kind of start where we left off on the last stream. So basically, on the last stream, again, like Mark had that amazing idea of using vertex colors as a way to basically mask out vertex displacement. So that's really cool. We talked about it on the last stream with a little bit of a different approach, but this is actually much cooler. All right, so let's see what we're talking about. I'm gonna start from scratch. Okay, I'm gonna delete it again. Start from scratch, and let's get, first of all, a nice test geometry. in the AR library, which comes with Spark, you have this high-res plane primitive, right? Cool. So this is basically just a plane with a lot of subdivisions. So now what we want is we want to displace that. So I made this pass-through patch. You will be able to find it on, like I said, if you subscribed, you can get all of the shit. Or this is also actually on the group. I changed it up a little bit so that you just go to the material, select your patch asset, pass through here. Sorry, I don't seeing it that well, I think because of the overlay, but pass through. And let me just, hold on. I think probably for the overlay, this is not totally important, so let's get rid of it. So now you have the color and the position nodes, and for color, as always, we're gonna put our beautiful favorite texture in, which is, of course, hold on, this guy. One triangle to rule them all. And then, boom, we have our, hey Mark, we were just talking about you. Only in the best terms, obviously. Talked about vertex color. So this is now our grid again, right? So now if we just put a value, and we need 4 dimensions here, and then we just put whatever, like in, let's say in Z, a very small number. It's actually quite high. This is gonna move. So what's happening is that the vertices are displaced by that amount that I'm putting here, right? I'm just gonna move that up and make it a little bit bigger so that you see what's happening. And this is not terribly exciting yet. So let's do something. Let's put a sine wave in, and put runtime in so that we have actually an animation. Let's swizzle it so it's affecting, well, I mean, you don't need to swizzle it, you can put it in. And it's gonna get like crazy. See, it's like moving up and down like crazy. And this is because the value is just like way too big. Like the dimension of the coordinates in this world, like it's much smaller. So we're just gonna put a multiply 0.1 and then it's just gonna move up and down. Now we only want to move it in Z, let's say. So I'm gonna swizzle it around and say, okay, I want this value only to be affecting, like you see here, Z channel, and now it's going back and forth, which is, again, not terribly exciting. So what we want to do, we want to modulate this value with any property of the object, so to speak. So basically what I'm saying is we want, like, if this is our, quad, we want whatever, like the polygon, the square. And let's say we want to make a flag, right? So we want to behave it like this. So we have to somehow tell it, well, move this point here differently than that point. And what we can do, for example, is we can use vertex colors, right? I'm sorry, vertex texture coordinates, basically. We can say, hey, and now I'm going to use the unpack node for once. Usually I'm using swivel, but why not unpack? We have 2 dimensions, U and V. And now let's say, hey, let's take this for our sine wave. See, and now we're getting somewhere. We have basically the thing is curved, because this point here has a different value than this point, and now we can multiply it so that the sine wave is actually gonna get shorter. See, and now it's doing up and down. It's like way too much, so let's tone it down. So this is basically much better. It's like a flag, I suppose. And then if we add runtime in again, so that the number basically slides through the position, then we're gonna see that we have a waving flag. Fucking beautiful. So that's basically where we left off last time, right? But like, let's say, hey, we want that flag only to move here at the bottom and not at the top. Well, hello, vertex colors. All right, so here we are in Cinema 4D. I did actually another poll on the forum where I asked which DCC, so digital content creation tool, people are using. And a lot replied Blender. I don't know anything about Blender. I want to learn Blender, but not today. So it's going to be Cinema 4D. Hi, Isabel. Hi, Hongwei. Yeah, I know Blender, yeah, but some other time. You guys can teach me. You know, we can do a knowledge exchange. Anyway, at the end of the day, this is why I'm doing this shit, right? Like, I'm doing it to learn stuff. That's what I keep saying. So if anyone wants to teach me Blender, let me know. All right. So, but anyway, so we have a plane, and we do want a couple more subdivisions, right? Now it's let's do it like this. 10 by 10, but we want some more. Let's do whatever. 64, I don't know. And then I'm going to show you that it's really 64 subdivisions. So yeah, so this is our guy, right? And now the cool thing is that there's a thing called vertex colors, where you can basically give each of those vertices, each of those points, a color. And in Cinema 4D, it works like this. You just put a vertex color tag on it, and now you can paint, right? So it's white, but you can paint anything you want. You can just fill it up, say, okay, white, and then say maybe, okay, here is black, and then smooth it out a little bit. And this will be now our flag. You have to export it, let's say FBX. And now you have to be careful that you want to be sure that you basically click vertex colors for the export. It depends on your tool, whether this is an option you have to click or what, I don't know. But yeah, so this is the thing. I'm just gonna save that. Make a new folder for today. What's today's date? What? 17. And say plain FBX or whatever. All right, cool. So now let's get that guy in. And here's our plane, right? Cool. So it's oh fuck, it's huge. So that, okay, so that always happens to me, that FBXs are 10 times as big as they should be. I always do 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. There's probably some setting I can do that to be smarter than that, but I have no idea. I'm like lazy, so I'm just gonna fuck it. I'm just gonna redo it every time. Anyway, so what's the point here? Okay, let's just you know put this to invisible for a second now. So this is our plane, and this is our material. So now what we can do actually, we can, for the texture, obviously put our texture in, right? This is texture again. But we can also say vertex attributes vertex color and put that there. And there you see, this is what we painted on, right? So this is black, the other stuff is white. Now, if we, for this material, also do the pass-through thing and say color and position again, color we reconnect with vertex color. So here we are again. And now for position, we're just gonna enter the same thing we just did and see now it's moving. So because this object was bigger, we have to adjust our values, and because the orientation is different than the iris plane, we also have to adjust our basically orientation. And to be honest, it's probably easier to just do that here and re-export it. So I'm just gonna do this. I'm just gonna flip it up, and then I'm just gonna scale it down so that it's like way smaller, and then I'm just gonna export it again. Yes, okay. Replace it, and here I'm gonna go replace, and then now I have to also probably put it in again. And oops. And now it's actually the right orientation and also a much more manageable size. I mean, it's still a little bit big. I didn't really pay attention to the numbers. But now if we again adjust our material and put this here to patch asset, put the color to this texture here, and then, well, okay, it's you know, inverted vertically, but I don't care. So that's not the point here. and then we could put the position, now it's already the third material, to this. Okay, so we have this. Okay, so now, you know, it's also doing the same thing as the other guy. Oh, actually, no, it's still the other direction, but no worries. We can just change that here. Oh, hold on. It's not. Alright, I'm just gonna delete the other stuff for a second. So just to retain my plane. And if I connect the position here. Right, okay, let me just really quick. It should actually work if I put this swivel here to a different. So this is in this direction. This direction. This is what we want. Okay, so now we have again like a wavy kind of flag type thing. Okay, and now the cool thing is if we just basically, so this is again like our vertex color, which we defined here. So it's 0 here and it's 1 here, which means black and white, right? And if I just basically multiply this whole shit, like the whole displacement stuff, we are piping in the position value here, and do a multiply, and multiply this with the vertex color. See? Oh, nice. Look at that. We have basically a plane just moving at the bottom, and on the top, it's not doing anything. Woo! That's pretty cool. But we can do better than that, I think. So how about we do a real proper flag, let's say, right? So we're just gonna take advantage of the fact that we are here in this beautiful program and do a little cloth simulation. Why not, right? So in Cinema 4D it's actually dead easy. Just gonna put the cloth tag in, select 2 points, say, hey, those are fixed points, play it, and then it's just doing cloth animation. Oh shit, man, this is crazy. Probably some weird shit happening with the scale. I don't care, I'm just gonna do it again because that was weird. Why that is... okay. Simulation. Cloth. Select 2 points. Well, it might actually be because it's quite a few... It's quite a high tessellation. Yeah. Okay, well, let's see how it plays out. And see if we can use it. Yeah, I don't like it. So I'm just gonna go back and do a plane with maybe less vertices, and that's probably gonna make a nicer yeah, that's much nicer. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna basically cache the whole thing, and what that allows me is to just scrub through it back and forth to see the basically the final thing, and then I'm just gonna select a frame where I feel that it looks like a nice, yeah, this is kind of cool, cloth piece. And then I'm just gonna layer. Oh, I can just, yeah, delete this guy, and then this is what I have. So now I have to just repaint the weight, which I have to do anyway because, okay, I want everything to be white. White. And then I want just the edges. Hey, Lasse, yeah, I mean, you can always rewatch it, like I said in the beginning. The edges here that I don't want to move, right? And that's it. And then basically that's exactly the same thing. The only difference is that I have a bit of a nicer shape to start with, right? So if I take this guy now, It's funny, the what throws me off the most, hey David, is if I have to scroll through all the folders on the computer to find my files. That's always weird. I wish they had a better way to deal with that. I don't know how, but it's so weird. Okay, so here's our flag, and let's see how that's looking now. Okay, I'm not seeing it at all, actually. Oh, there it is. It's huge again. So first of all, I want to give it a double-sided material. Yeah, there you go. So this is our flag. And then, yeah, basically that's it. So I'm just gonna go and say, hey, you guys have the same material as the others, which was, I don't even know which one was it. Oh yeah, of course we have to also give it double-sided properties. Yeah, there it is. Okay, plane is moving, but now again, because of the difference in scale, it's a little bit. It could move a little more, right? So let's up that guy. Oh, now it's again also in the wrong direction. So let's see which one is the right one. Oh, it's interesting too. It's not the one I want though. Yeah. Oh, there you go. See? Beautiful. And there you go. So you have basically a flag you can wave around. Very nice. And now, you know, because everyone's going crazy about this gallery texture thing, why not try that for a second? So basically the new thing, if you haven't seen that yourself, you can now on Instagram have the user put an image on your filter, right? So, all right, let's first put face mesh, put the flag in there. What is it? Oh yeah, we have to obviously get the guy. So guy. This is always my favorite guy. He's not moving, but that's fine. Alright. There you go. And I think it can also be a little bit more action. Yeah, that's better. And then let's make it move faster. Hallelujah, alright, why not? Johnny Ive always deserves a hallelujah. Fuck yeah. And alright, so what are we doing? Face mesh, I'm just gonna put invisible. Oh, that looks nice. And then, oh, gallery texture is grayed out. Oh fuck, why? Okay, because you have to first... So this is a little bit of a gallery texture tutorial, guys, right? Why not? Okay. So why is it grayed out? Well, you have to do edit properties, deselect Facebook. It's not available in Facebook apparently. Now I can go gallery texture, boom. I just put my gallery texture in here, just put to my color slot, and that's it. I'm done. And in order to show you, as far as I know, I don't think it works in the simulator, right? But I'm just gonna do a little push to Instagram. And once that's done, yeah, bone rigging at the same time. That's a great question, actually. It should just basically work. So this is obviously for stuff like that. Something I've thought about as well, because usually how you would do basically a cloth hanging down or something, you would use bones. So what you could do is you do the basic movement with bones, and then you just add details with vertex displacement, and that should just basically work out of the box. Okay, so here's the link. I'm just gonna put it in the chat, so enjoy, guys. And I'm just gonna try it too on my side and share that with you as well. See whether that works. Okay, Instagram, and now I have actually, let's see, where's my, this is me. Oh, that looks weird. That's actually, it's my, oh yeah, see? Now I can say Oh, I hope I don't have anything weird in there. That's not too bad. My cat. Isn't it beautiful? Look at this beautiful cat. It's so nice. And yeah, so the only problem basically is that we don't have shading, right? And that was actually something I was working on. And I do have some solutions, but also Matt is going to talk about some solutions. Last and my gallery, yes, exactly. Poor guy. And so I'm not going to talk about that, but wait for him. Okay, so yeah, so this was pretty cool. I hope. But there's more. Guys, probably all of you have seen. And okay, so this is about as much as I wanted to show you guys for today. Shark, yeah. And the rigging was completely overridden. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't tried it yet, so I can't tell you whether it's overridden or not. I have to try. It might be actually overridden. That would actually suck. Suck a lot. But you know, actually, if you take the local position and then just add your shit after that, well, you can also add your shit after the world position. I don't know. I have to try. Should we try? I don't know. I have some other cool shit to show you because people wanted GI. So let's do that. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have seen the Unreal Engine 5 demo, and you probably have, but if you haven't, I'm just gonna show it to you. And we're just gonna watch the Unreal 5 thing together.
Hello, I'm Brian Karras, Technical Director of Graphics here at Epic Games.
So I can do
art director of the special project.
I can do my own React video. You know, like on YouTube, they always do React videos. Okay, blah, 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 fuck off. Okay, so that's the point. So this is Unreal 5, right? And it's pretty crazy. So they have like the two major things. I mean, they have a lot of really cool shit in there, but like the two major things really they have is, first of all, they have Megascan assets they're using to make this. Well, I'm just gonna let them talk.
Around 1 million triangles each, and thanks to virtual texturing, they all use 8K textures as well. Nanite can render an insane number of triangles very quickly. There are over 1 billion triangles of source geometry in each frame that Nanite crunches down losslessly to around 20 million drawn triangles. What does that many triangles look like? This isn't noise. These are the triangles, each a different color. Most are so small that they look like noise. Nanite achieves detail down to the pixel, which means triangles are often the size of pixels. This amount of geometric detail requires shadows to be pixel accurate as well, and Nanite can do that too. Speaking of lighting, all of the lighting in this demo is completely dynamic, with the power of Lumen that even includes multi-bounce global illumination. No light maps, no baking here.
Okay, so the point is that they have a shitload of polygons and they have beautiful lighting. So how would we get that into Spark AR? Well, obviously the answer is we can't, but let's still do a little test. Let's see if we can have fun with it. So first of all, what they're using is this here, Quixel Megascans. And Quixel is, as far as I know, a Swedish company that have been manually scanning like all those assets. And they actually made their own device for that. It's kind of like a startup. It's really cool. And now Epic bought it. And you can just download shit. You know, I mean, it works the same way with the Sketchfab AR library, I suppose. But because I used it in the demo, I wanted to give this a shot. So let's see, what should we do, guys? Let me know what do you wanna use. Just put in the chat, I don't know, tree or wood or whatever, I don't know, let me know. This is a user-generated stream opportunity here. So just chime in. What should I put? Rock with moss. All right, that's good. I like that. Let's see, where is it? This one. Turns out, this is not prepared, but I actually like this rock so much that I have it already downloaded. So let's just cut straight to the chase, and we're gonna open a new scene here, and I'm gonna just put that rock in. So basically, you can just use your Epic account or make a free account if you play Fortnite, which I haven't ever tried, but you know you can just use it. So basically, you can download. Oh, actually, no. Hey, let's do it together because I downloaded the low resolution version and I want to have a little bit high resolution. So again, you can just for free download this 3D asset. Go to the moss rock, this one. Okay, I have to log in. Hold on. Okay, there you go. I logged in. I can just adjust the download settings, and I want just LOD one. So LOD is basically different. Yeah, Japanese lamp is cool too. We're gonna get that in a second. But let's just first talk about the process. So I want just 2K textures. That's totally fine. I want normal. I want roughness. Yes. I want LOD1. That's basically the different resolutions of the meshes, and that's fine. I'm just gonna download it, and then I can just put it into the folder, which is today's date for Twitch. And then I can just basically unpack it, unzip it, zip it, cricket, zip it. And then this gives me this, which is my FBX, you know, as the channels I selected. So if I throw that into, what the face? Spark, there you go. This is my rock. I have to connect the texture. Oh, that doesn't work. Okay, interesting. So there's no drag and drop for texture slots in Spark apparently. And you know, there you go. So that's pretty cool. So now let's say we want a GI lighting. So so how do you usually do it? If you have Unreal Engine 5, then it just comes out of the box. You don't have to worry about anything. It just works. Yada, yada, yada. Amazing, amazing. But we don't. And so what do we do? So traditionally, what you would do, basically, you would have two sets of UVs. And because the concept of UVs is actually something that took me quite a while to understand, I do want to reiterate a little bit what that means. Okay, so basically imagine you have an Easter egg wrapper. Yeah? Something like this, right? So imagine you have this Easter egg and you want to draw something on it. And you have this wrapper and you wrap it around. And then whatever you painted on this wrapper ends up at a certain position on this egg. Yeah, you can imagine that, right? So in order to tell the computer at which position of this 3D object anything you draw needs to end up on, you need to tell it, hey, this, stroke needs to end up at, top left, and this stroke needs to end up at the middle. So this is what Vertex, what UVs are. And it's called UVs because if you imagine coordinates, like a coordinate system, you have X and Y usually, right? So this is a coordinate system. It's a three-dimensional coordinate system. You have X and Y. Wikipedia always helpful. X and Y and Z. Or, usually in 3D, Y is up and Z is basically the direction inside of the screen. And U and V are just other numbers to explain a coordinate system in a 2D space. So basically, if you imagine a 2D coordinate system, X and Y, X, Y coordinates, this is what you have for an image, right? So basically, this is what UV is. So basically, if you imagine this wrapper again, this point on the wrapper might be at U0 and V0, so U and V being the axes of, the 2D, two-dimensional plane with its wrappers, and this is associated with this point on the object, for example. So this is an XYZ at a certain point. So that, again, I hope that explanation didn't suck too bad. Again, this is something it took me really a while to wrap my head around, and I just want to reiterate this for today's session because it is kind of a mindfuck what we are gonna do if you're not familiar with that shit. All right, so okay, so UV mapping, we have it. So what you would usually do, so you do have UV maps here for this moss, and we can look at it if we open it up in our 3D application, and this is our rock again, and let's give it a nice material. Okay, and this material is gonna be our texture we downloaded. Oh, that looks ugly, but okay, like this, right? And then also I have to adjust that it also looks nice in the editor. Okay, so this is our rock, right? So how does this vertex here know, this one, which part of this two-dimensional texture, which looks like this, right, it should refer to? And the answer is UV. So you can look at it here, and basically here you see it. So this point, right, in 3D space is associated with this point on the texture. So this is unwrap, basically like an egg. You have the wrapper, you unwrap it, then it's flat, and then you can paint the texture on it. That's what UVs are, right? So now, okay, here comes this thing. Obviously, you want to optimize any real-time stuff as much as possible. So you want to use not that many textures. If you're Unreal 5, then you don't give a shit. You just use whatever you want. But as we are running on mobile and we are Spark, we do care. So this object here has a certain amount of triangles, right? Polygons. And it has a texture. So we have a limited amount of memory. So let's say we want to light that object, right? And you know that GI we cannot do in real time. So let's just jump in it. I'm talking too much, I think. Let's just build a little scene with those beautiful rocks here. So I'm just gonna basically copy them and move them around so that they hopefully look cool. And I'm just gonna use one of them as the base and just make it like huge. Like this. Pretty cool. Alright, so this is fun, right? And again, guys, this is gonna be some mindfuck. I tried it before for this stream, and I don't think that I will get everything right on the first try, because this is like something you really have to be super, super aware of what you're doing. All right, whatever. So let's say this is our scene, and now we want to light it. Okay, let's get a light, an area light, of course. And the way I always do it, and this is actually a great tip for if you're working in 3D anytime. The way to light shit, this is like amazing. You put a light into a null, and then you just move the light away from your scene, and then if you rotate your null, you can just basically light the scene really nicely. Okay, so because the point is, again, we cannot do GI or nice soft shadows or anything in Spark. So we need to kind of calculate it. So we're gonna just make it look nice for a second, and then we're just gonna say, hey, this light needs a shadow. We want to have it an area shadow. Let's maybe move it away a little bit further. Whoops. There you go. And then how does it look? All right, pretty good. Let's say that looks good. Whatever. Let's say that. So how do we get this light information inside of our, let's say real-time engine? So usually what you would do is you would do 2 UV sets. So what that means is that now, again, like all of these rocks are referencing the same texture. Okay, so we have just one texture. So it doesn't matter how many rocks I put, they are always using the same texture. But now imagine if I render that scene from this perspective, for example, right, you see that, oh, hold on, render to picture viewer so that we can talk about it. So you see this part of the image is bright and this part is dark, right? But this stone here is flipped upside down. So the bottom part is bright while the top part is dark. If I would just render that to that texture, right? Basically saying, oh yeah, this part of the stone is always bright, this part of the stone is always dark. It wouldn't work because I'm reusing the stones. And I want to be able to not have for each of the stones a new texture, because that would be super wasteful. So what you would usually do, right, is you would usually say, hey, okay, let's do 2 UV sets, basically one wrapper for the moss texture and another wrapper around the whole scene just for the light texture, right? And you would literally do that in C4D by just duplicating this little guy here. This is like the UV tag. But it turns out, unfortunately, Spark cannot do that, right? But we looked into our friend, the vertex color. So the idea is, hey, why don't we store the light information in the vertex color? And okay, that's the theory. Everyone understood that. That's great. But it is like quite a thing to do that in Cinema 4D. So it's quite an involved workflow that you have to just get down once and then it kind of works. And let's try it together. I tried it. You know, don't try that at home, kids. But okay, so first what I'm going to do, I'm going to put everything in a group, basically under null, and duplicate it and just hide this thing so that I don't fuck it up. So now what I want is I want to give all those objects here a new UV, so that if I render the texture, as I said, this part of the stone can be bright and this part of the other stone can be dark. Okay, so luckily we have something which I found out. It's like a very old but very useful thing in Cinema for Body Paint 3D. There's something which does that out of the box, which is kind of amazing, because I don't think that a lot of people know that. I didn't know that. So is this paint wizard here, and you can basically tell it, hey, you know, take, and I don't want it to take my old objects, but only the copied objects I just did. Take all of those objects, right? And do a new UV mapping for all of that shit. And I want it to be a color channel. Existing textures, I don't care about existing textures. Map size interpolation, I don't care about that. And I want it to be, you know, 1K. Okay, so let's try that. So that takes a little while. It's thinking where it should paint the pixels from the. Okay, so now everything looks fucked up, right? Well, why? Because now again, if you look at the UVs of those things, now you see that. Hold on. Well, it's a little bit hard to see, but basically this gray stuff here, this is where it thought that this. Let me just try to select it. Yeah, so this basically, where is it? Yeah, the underside goes here, but in the original texture, the underside is completely at a completely different place. So now that's all weird. So now, how do we get our beautiful light on there? And the answer for that in Cinema, at least, is this bake command here. Object, bake material. Now, we would have to do that for each of the different stones, and that's a lot of work, so we don't want that. So I'm just going to copy that again. So this is all my scene with new UVs. Select it, go connect and delete, and now I have just one object, yeah, one material with one UV set. And actually, because I want to bake the lighting, I don't want any texture information in there, so I'm going to make a new material and put it on there so everything's white, okay? All right, so now I want to bake material. I want it to be, hold on, 1K by 1K. I want it to be JPEG because that's totally fine. If we just bake lighting information, who cares? And I want illumination, and I do want shadows. And then I have to tell it where to put it. I'm just gonna put it in the same folder we just made. Where is it? Here. And I'm gonna call it light. Okay, and then I'm just gonna, well, super sampling, yes, why not? Say bake. Okay, and now here it's gonna basically render this light information here with the shadows and everything into a wrapper, right? Like the candy wrapper. So to see whether that works or not, I can basically take our material and put in the luminance channel so that there's no, it's like a flat material in Spark. I can take what we just did and it looks a little weird because yeah, this see, so this is basically now our beautiful lighting, what we have with shadows, beautiful shadows and GI. Well, it's not technically GI, but like it looks amazing on an object. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, shark time, shark time, shark time. That's pretty cool. So now the problem is, well, how do we get it inside of Spark? Because this is like one object, right? And we do want all of those other objects with our nice textures and stuff. So now we have to kind of get it back there. So first of all, the cool thing is I'm going to hide the singular object we used to just bake our lighting because it was easier to not having to redo it per object. And now if I just take those guys here and I put this material on there, I'm just going to delete the material, and then I'm going to see that it will hopefully, yeah, it still works for the individual objects. Why? Well, because the UVs on the individual objects are still the same. So now you see a bit of error stuff here, right? And this is just because some of the mapping the cinema generated is not the best. Right? So, but it's fine because it's kind of like usually GI lighting, it's kind of like a soft lighting. You're not going to use it to do like a spotlight or stuff like that, but just to have like this nice soft shadow and the bounces and stuff. So, but we still have the problem now. We have two materials, right? We have this material here, which is our GI, well, our light map. And we have this other material, which is our moss stuff. And we also have two UV sets. So we have like this UV set here where it's our moss texture. And we have this UV set where it's our light. Okay, so now, again, to make it easier, because we are not saving any space by using basically the individual objects as instances, I'm just gonna, first of all, I'm gonna save the scene, because if I fuck it up now, then we are in trouble. So let's say, okay, I don't know, moss scene 1, I don't know. So now to save us a little time, I'm just gonna bake down everything, connect objects and delete into two objects. So now I have one object. Oh, hold on. See, that was already, so now I have two objects here, right? One object is our light, and the other object is our, our textures we downloaded from Quixel. And the cool thing is, because the UV mapping is still the one we used for downloading, we can still import the other channels which came from Quixel, right? So the normal map and the roughness map and so on. Okay, now we have to get basically the lighting information, right? We have to get that into Spark while maintaining the material we got from the Quixel side. And so again, like the idea is to bake this lighting we have now on a texture and bake it to UVs. And I searched around like forever, and it wasn't possible in Cinema 4D, but I found a way, and it's actually quite easy. So I'm gonna give it the Vertex color tag, like we did before with the flag, right? Like this is a tag where you just basically paint some parts white and bright to see, hey, at what point does the flag move. But you can also put anything in there. And how you do it in Cinema again is with fields. So you're just going to say, hey, use fields. And I'm not going to explain anything about fields for now. It's a really cool concept they introduced in Cinema, I think, I don't know, 19 or 20, I'm not sure. And with this, you can do it. So basically, you just say, hey, okay, let's start again from scratch. So I'm just going to say, hey, vertex color. And then I'll go to fields. I don't need that freeze now. I need it later. And I'm going to do shader field. And here in shader, I can just basically say, hey, copy this texture, the light texture we made. R19, I'm not sure, you have to check, maybe it's R19, not sure. And then I'm gonna do path shader, and see, this is now exactly what we want. So this is the light information we baked to texture, now transferred to our vertex colors. Woo, shark time! This shit took me forever to figure out. This is fucking shark time, people. Okay, so now, alright, so that's pretty good. So now this is also something it took me a while. Oh, R20. Okay, so it's R20. But you can also use Blender. In Blender, it's actually very easy. I found that in Blender 2.7x, it's just one click. In Blender 2.8, there's a Python script you can use, and I tried it, but because I don't know anything about Blender, it didn't work, but it's probably just me, so just, fuck it, use Blender, I suppose. But again, like in Cinema 4D, this is how it works, right? And now the problem is that if we now we want to still add our other materials, so we have to kind of because this is connected now, right? Like the shader field here is still connected to our texture. So we can use the freeze, I don't even know what that is, modifier or whatever. And what that does is that it freezes anything that is below here. So if we now delete our, I hope this works, delete our texture. Yeah, we still see if we delete our texture and delete our vertex map, we still have the lighting information inside of the what is shit called vertex colors. So now, all right, so now we have our beautiful texture on this. So now we should be able to just take the original UV information, put it back, take the texture, see, and now we have let's call it I don't know, meadow. And now we have our texture information here and here. Oh fuck. No good. Hold on. Revert. Oh no, I know why it's okay. So it's just, so now again we have our texture information here. See, and in the vertex colors we have our GI shark time. Okay, so now if we say export that, and let's call it meadows again. Gotta save the scene. And then this is also a cool feature I just found out the other day, is export selected objects. I don't know whether that was around forever and I just didn't know about it, or whether that's new, but now we can say, hey, okay, FBX. And now we can make sure to put vertex colors and materials. And then we're just gonna say meadows FBX, yes. Go back to Spark, to Joni. I'm just gonna put a new scene. This music totally sounds like meadows already. I'm more meadowy. Okay, now I'm just gonna drag our meadows FBX in, and oh yeah, and put it in a, suppose in a plane tracker. And there you go. So it maintains our texture. Fuck yeah. And now the big moment. If we now use our vertex attribute and say vertex color, put it in here. Yes! Fuck yeah, we have fucking nice shading inside of fucking Spark. Oh yes, yeah. And we can just use this basically to say, hey, multiply our diffuse texture with our shading. It's a little dark, right? So let's just maybe bump it up a bit. I'm just going to put an add here and say whatever, 0.4. Yeah, that looks very nice. Yeah, that looks very nice. And now we can bring all the other textures in, right? So we can say this is actually a physical based material, so I have to reconnect it again. Yeah, like this. Oh, and now it's also looks good like this. Oh, a little brighter is always nice. Still not okay. And then we can put our normal texture in. We download it from Quixel. Oh yeah, we said that this didn't work. Normal texture. That's probably it didn't make any difference, I think. Does that make a difference? Oh yeah, it does, it does. Yeah, this will be uploaded. This is the question. So the idea is I will upload it to Gumroad and put like a little money on it, like not a lot. And the tutorial part will be available free. And if you want to, because Alice is asking whether that will be accessible later. And I thought like if you subscribe to the Twitch channel, you get all of the shit we're talking about on the stream for free. So, okay, so we have this, and then we also have, what else do we have? Roughness. Let's put the roughness in. And then roughness is a little bit weird because you have to have this ORM texture, put everything to 100. So ORM means occlusion, roughness, metallic. So I'm just gonna swivel. We have no occlusion. Oh, sorry. This is a value. This is a roughness. No occlusion. We have this is the roughness channel. A metallic. It's not metallic, so 0 and a 1 for alpha. And then in order for it to show up, we do have to also put an environment texture. Let's take a nice meadow, of course. Pod. Oh, we have a lot of untitled projects open, I suppose. There it is. And then if we have the material and then put environment here. Yeah, that's the thing. I always find it a little bit weird to work with the physical based materials. I think Matt can probably talk about that a little bit more. But basically what I would do at that point actually is say, hey, okay, if physical shit doesn't work, fuck it. Oh, that's a little bit anticlimactic at this point, actually. Unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate. But I'm just gonna put a... And then obviously what you want to do is you want to adjust your directional light to the direction of the light source you made in the 3D package, or up the ambient light. That's probably a better way to do that. Yeah, that looks nice. And then that way we can still use normals, which is still connected. Cool. All right. So yeah, there you go. Beautiful lighting inside of a thing. Woo! Shark time. And now we're gonna add, before we get mad, and we're gonna add a little bonus to it, because you remember this wavy flag thing here? We can obviously say, okay, now that we're added, let's just, now we have our object. Hey Christoph, ja, ich habe meinen Raum blau gestrichen. And say, say to object, now everything's kind of like baked down. Should be. Yes, okay, great. So this is our object. And then now we can just say, okay, let's... Oh, this is so weird. This always happens that at cinema, I think it's a bug. Do I want to? No, I don't care. Let's see. Yeah. We can obviously copy that around a little bit more. I mean, I don't know about file size at that point. Not sure whether that's relevant. Oh, we want to, maintain roughly same orientation, I suppose, because of the light we baked. Oh shit! And we can. So basically, okay. Let's keep going and not talk too much until I figure it out. And do the landscape here. And then maybe you already figured out what I want to do. If we look at it from the top, I'm just doing a. And again, like this is freestyle here. I don't know what I'm doing really, but let's see whether it works. What am I doing? Yeah, guys, like if you want to ask any questions, actually. Can we do vertex displacement in scripts, basically? I don't know, maybe. I think the metallic channel is black in the ORM, then the metallic channel. Oh yeah, that might be true. Again, like the this is like weird shit. I don't really care that much about the PBR material. Again, Mark is probably gonna be able to tell you a little bit more about that in a second. I think maybe I'm losing myself, but basically I want to make a river, but I think that takes too long. All right, fuck it, But we could obviously also add a river, and then use vertex displacement. And you could even do flow maps. And maybe I'm going to continue the scene after the thing. But now, let's get Matt in, I would say, and see what he has to offer. Because... Oh, cool. You can do vertex displacement in a script. So that's amazing. So let's see if we can get him in. All right. Let's see where he's at. Let's see. All right. So that was my part of the show today. I think it was... a lot of fun. I was super excited about it. I do have a lot of other shit to tell you guys. It went much better than expected, much quicker than expected. So we can definitely take on the other topics in the next streams. Okay. So Matt, come join me in the Hangout. It's the same link I sent you earlier. Ah, there he is already.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can see you. People can see you too.
Cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Matt. And it's another name I'm probably gonna mangle, so I'm not even gonna try. So can you
Matt Greenhalgh for the curious.
Greenhalgh. All right.
Indeed.
All right. What is that? Is that like what is that from? That name?
I think it's from I grew up in Scotland, but my dad's from England. I think it's like Lancashire or somewhere up north like that.
Cool. Yeah, so welcome. I'm very excited to have you here. I'm a huge fan of your work. We also did meet in London at the hackathon, like so many of you guys. I think, yay! I'm not wearing my swag because I had to promote my adversarial t-shirt, right? Next time, maybe again. So, what was I saying? So, but anyway, maybe if you want to introduce yourself a little bit for our listeners that might not know you yet.
Sure. Hi guys. So my name is Matt Greenhalgh. I've been working with Spark AR since I guess 2017, mainly through work. So you won't see many personal filters from me. Most of the work I do is kind of with clients. I work for an agency called Stink Studios in London. I'm the tech director there. We worked with Facebook kind of on some of the early Instagram pre-beta stuff. So we did a couple of projects for Disney and Lisa and Lena, if you've seen the blinking eyes with the sparkles coming out the eyes, that filter, little mix. And a few other since, one of which I might talk about on the stream. So we'll see how we do for time. And one thing I should say, I'm running off a laptop here. It crashed about 10 minutes ago, so I'm hoping I can get through with Twitch and Spark running and everything else. But Matthew, am I good to share my screen?
Yeah.
Cool. So let me try that. See how we do. And if you can't hear me or have any problem with sound, Matty, I'll ask you to give me a shout if that's all right.
It's pretty good, yeah. We can hear you well.
Cool. So you're to my left. You guys can see my screen okay?
Yes, but I'm just going to resize the window on my end so that it's a little bit bigger in the stream.
Yeah, let me zoom in. I'm not used to...
No, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So hopefully this session is going to kind of segue nicely from what Matty has been talking about, actually. So I kind of looked at the same poll, and there was a few other options on there. I'm not going to talk too much about Vertex colors. I think Matty's done an amazing job of giving you a whistle-stop tour of some of the cool things you can do with those. I'm going to talk a little bit about lighting and kind of the way I use it. I kind of done a few posts on the community over the last year or two talking about particularly the physical material and the way it responds to lighting, some of the problems it has in Spark. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through some of the approaches I use to lighting. Hey, sorry.
Yeah, by the way, Dreamstream Explorer is asking whether you were in Berlin for the hackathon. I didn't meet you there, but were you there and we missed each other?
No, I was not. I've only been to the London hackathon. So.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, didn't want to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so I think some of this stuff Matty covered last week. I've been, must confess, Matty, rapidly catching up on your past streams. So including the one this afternoon, which I realized a lot of work I'd done, you'd actually covered last week. So hopefully this doesn't repeat too much, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about the dot product and how you can use that. Hopefully that's going to be interesting for people. So I've got a Spark scene set up here. This is a pretty common setup I have where I'll have like a sphere, the face mesh. I've actually detached it from our dude just so we can kind of see it in isolation. And then just like a flat plane here, just a square plane. And it's kind of useful to be able to have the same material assigned to all three, and then just so you can see how that material responds on different kind of surfaces and so on. So I've got a material unplugged for now. So I guess the basic starting point for this is quite often if you want to add lights to a scene, you'll have some meshes like we have here. You might have a material and you maybe assign like a standard shader to it. I haven't got any lights in my scene, so let me add a light here. There we go, directional light. There we go, the arrow will just get lit by it, and you can change the color obviously and animate it. You know, you can stick a node in here and animate the position and so on, and it gives you quite a lot of flexibility. One of the issues with it is obviously you're limited in terms of the quantity of lights you can add, and the other thing is you can't really access the light properties themselves and manipulate them in other ways other than what's provided in the panel here. Color and intensity is mostly what you want to play with when you're talking about lights, but there's another technique which I'm going to show you. Matty talked about last week, but I'll go through it again. That uses something called the dot product. So I'm just going to change this back to let me just delete this light for a second. I'm going to change my material back to a flat material. Okay, so let's grab our texture slot here. So I've got a just gray color. I'm just going to plug that in for now because it's a flat material. They all go gray. Okay, so I'm just going to drag these down. I've got some pre-made blocks and things set up here. Oh, peek ahead. Okay, so let's just slide this over here. So just before I get this set up, so this is the basic patch graph. I'm going to rebuild this, but this is what we're going to be building here. Just to give you a bit of theory on this, I've got a little Blender sphere set up here with the normals activated. So the normals, as you know from Matty, are these vectors that point directly away from the surface or from the vertex in this case. And you can see they point out in different directions depending on which direction the face or the vertex is facing. I've got a sunlight up here. If I select it, there you go. You can see there's a sun lamp there. And if I render this quickly, you can see it gets lit from above. Hold that in mind, because my annotations, I can't overlay on top of the render. So imagine this is lit from above, as you see in the render here, as I switch these on. So I had a little draw over here. Let's go. Yeah, see, I'm missing a texture. There we go. We've got my crappy sun there. And I guess the point with directional light from the sun is that it's parallel, even though the position might be quite close. Position doesn't really matter with directional lights. All of the sun rays or light rays are parallel, and they strike the surface from the same direction, regardless of where on the mesh they hit. So the sun hits the top point here with the same angle as it hits this point here on the side, as it hits at this point at very, very side here. And you can see that there's, if the sunlight angle or direction rather is consistent like this, but it's hitting the surface in different places, the normals are different in those places as well. You can see here there's a normal pointing up. This one points out to the right diagonally, and this one points perpendicular to the light. It's at right angles to it. So this explains kind of why we see the kind of light behavior that we do. The top is pointing directly towards the light, and then progressively with the curvature they point further away. So the intensity of this light is actually proportional to the angle between the light direction and the angle of the normal. It's in fact equal to the cosine of that angle. And if you remember cosines from school, which I just about do, I've got a little graph here. Yeah, here we go. So this is a graph of the cosine function, and don't worry, you don't need to get too we don't need to get too caught up in this. Basically, the property of the cosine function that's notable in this situation, I guess, is that here we've got the angle. If this line here represents the angle of the between the normal and the sunlight, and when it's 0, the cosine is 1. When it's pi, it's -1. Pi, this is the line here is represented in what's called radians. So there are 2 pi radians in a full circle, just as there's 360 degrees. So pi is equivalent to 180 degrees. So basically it means when we're pi radians away, or 180 degrees away, the cosine will be -1. And when we're half pi divided by 2, half pi, or 90 degrees away from the sun angle, the cosine is 0. Right, that's the last time we need to look at a cosine graph, you'll be pleased to hear. So I've just put a little annotation with these numbers over the top here. So when the light and the normals are opposing each other, but directly aligned, then there'll be values 1. When they're at right angles, it's 0. When they're facing away from each other, then it's -1. And this intermediary point is actually 0.7. It's not 0.5, because as you can see, I lied, we have to go back to the graph. As you can see, this graph is not straight, it's a curved line, so there's some curvature to it, which is why we get a slightly different value, not a linear value like 0.5. Okay, so I think that's enough of the mesh now. That's the basic principle of the cosine of the angle between the light direction and the surface normal. Now, there's one way you could calculate that in Spark is to use the cosine function, but it turns out that the other way is to use the dot product, as Matty showed last week. So an interesting thing about the dot product is to correctly represent the cosine of the angle, it has to take 2 vectors as an input, and those vectors have to be normalized. Actually, I said I'd do this from scratch, so let's do that. And take these out. So we've got our material here. And we need to know the normals of the mesh. That's one of the things we had as a sort of ingredient of our calculation. So we'll get the vertex attribute normal, local normal. And the other thing is we needed a light direction, right? So we want to type in a value here. We'll make this a vector 3, call this light direction. And we'll give it positive 1, and vector 3, 5, something like that. So, and then we're going to use the dot product, we said. And that's going to give us this value that is related to the angle between the 2 things. So we can plug one in here. It doesn't like that because we need two the same. Okay, we've got our dot product, and we can plug this into here. It's probably isn't going to work very well. Okay, well, we've got something. So we've got a slightly ghosted mesh there. That's because we need to swizzle this. The output of the dot product is a number, a scalar value, just a single value. It's not like a XYZ value or something like that. So if we want to draw it to a color, we have to repeat X and give it an alpha of 1. And there we go. We've got our light recreated shining on the top of our mesh. There's no lights in the scene. We've recreated light effectively in this scene using just this value here, the light direction, and our local normal. Now you'll see there's something weird going on with this sphere over here. It turns out this sphere is actually rotating. I've set it to rotate. It's got an animation on it. And the reason the light seems to be rotating with it is because we're only using the local normals of the mesh. And that the local normals are rotating with the sphere, so the calculation doesn't work in this situation. Excuse me, sip of water. So what we need to do is transfer these normals into world normals, and we can do that using a vertex transform. Let's go normal, and we need to multiply these in this order. So the transform goes into the first slot, and the attribute goes in second, and we can plug this into the dot product now. Okay, so the light sort of stopped rotating around, but it looks very dim compared to the other meshes. And this comes on to the other requirement of using the dot product. Both the inputs, both the vectors that get placed into the dot product need to be normalized. So we can add a normalize function here. Normalize just means the vectors have unit length, which means they're equal to length 1. And I'm going to do this for this one as well, because in point of fact, it doesn't have length 1, even though we've given it. Yeah, I've set it to be 0, 1, 0.5, so you can imagine that's like a triangle, so it's not exactly length 1, so we can normalize both. Slight shifts in color, but you can see now that there's sort of pretty even lighting across all three meshes, so they're sharing the same kind of lighting configuration and intensity. Okay, so all that work just to kind of recreate Spark's internal lighting, diffuse lighting, I should say. Why on earth would we bother doing this? Well, like I say, the main reason for me is that we get so much more control using this technique. I've got a couple of things here which I can actually let me just do. I'll just drag this out and plug that in here. Move that over there and put that in there. Okay, so oh no, that didn't work. Let's try this. Okay, so I've got the gray color. I'm multiplying it by the lighting. This is how you apply lighting, by the way. As diffuse lighting certainly is you multiply the lighting by the material. That's how all lighting is applied. All diffuse lighting is applied in a scene. Okay, let me just grab. Yeah, so there's a few things we can do here that given that we control this value, can change the appearance of the lighting. So one of the things that we can do is bring in like this power node here, and I'm going to plug this in. And you can see it started to change the shape of the lighting. I'm just going to change this to squared. What this is going to do is I increase these values, is sort of focus the lighting into a more and more focused point. It can kind of make the, actually make this a bit brighter so we can see what's going on. There we go. Yeah, so it kind of focuses light. It's kind of similar to the shininess of an object. And we don't need to, we can change this to any kind of values we like. We can make it less than 1, which is the square root. And you can see this sort of extends the lighting out over the surface. Now you can see this horrible kind of blocky colors going on here. Why is that happening? It's because this is vertex lighting. We're just working within the vertex shader at the moment. If we want to have smoother lighting, per pixel lighting, we can insert a fragment stage here, and that basically means that the lighting calculations will be done on a per pixel basis rather than, or per fragment technically, basis rather than per vertex. So it's much smoother, and we get nice smooth lighting that way. Okay, so we know we can now change the sort of fall off or the focal focus of the lighting. We can also add color to it, so I can drag this node down here, and we can just take the outputs of power, multiply the output by a color, and then stick that in here, and suddenly we've recreated our colored lighting. Okay, so that's kind of interesting, but not especially novel. What about if we try inverting it? So I'm going to take the output into this from range value, and all this is doing is sort of inverting the value. And that's broken something, because I see I should do this, shouldn't I? That's one. There. There we go. Okay, so we've inverted our lighting now. So it's if I actually change the light direction, so it's just pointing straight towards the screen. There we go. You can see we've got a sort of Fresnel-ish kind of effect, and I can control the fall off again with this power function here. And I can also let's see if I try this out. I'm multiplying here. So this can actually control the intensity, so we can make it brighter at the edges. Maybe let's go 3. So you can create a kind of like holographic kind of Fresnel type of lighting glowing edge type of effect on the edges of the mesh, and that's just inverting what the values from 0 to 1, so they go from 1 to 0 instead. That's all that from range does. Okay, and then there's no reason why this has to be one light color either. We can take the output of this one, stick it in here, put this in here, and suddenly we get a kind of, let me just change these values, 1.51. A kind of duotone effect, or maybe something a bit like a sort of metallic paint shader, which has different chroma depending on the viewing angle. Quite a sophisticated sort of kind of effect, and we can adjust the position of this so it's coming from above. There you go. So you can see that because we control what happens to the output of this dot product, we can do much more interesting and varied things than we could do with just the light alone. Let's see if I can figure where I can plug this one in. Just got a little sine wave animation going on here as well. So if I say, let's add this into here, sine, this may or may not work. Okay, I was doing something. Not quite the effect I was going for. I think I need to add something up here. Yeah. This was maybe it was this one that goes in there. That's it. Yeah, there we go. So some kind of sine wave kind of weirdness going on there. You can animate that to make it a bit more crazy. So all of this just from the dot product, right? So it's super powerful. There's so many things you can do with this. I've used this in so many projects. It's like I'm trying to think something that you might know. I did one it was based on an animator's project. It was called Connor Whelan. It was like all sorts of lights sort of animating around the face using very similar technique to this. I used it on a commercial filter we did for Brown's Fashion, where I was using this sort of virtual light direction to kind of focus the effect on the sort of flattering viewing angle on people's faces, with sort of top-down lighting, so that it sort of focused the kind of actual filter effect in a specific region on the face. So there's loads of things you can do with this, as you can hopefully see, including more. So I'm going to unplug this. I think, can you guys still all hear me okay, Matty? I'll just pause the Twitch stream, so I'm sort of relying on the Hangout audio. So
yeah, everything's fine. Everything's fine. People are excited about that stuff.
Cool. Yeah, there's like so much potential for cool things with just that sort of basic setup of the dot product, and then just running it through gradient masks and gradients and values and so Okay, so next up, actually, let's unplug that. I don't want that carrying on up here. Next up, so one of the things I've used this for, obviously you've seen there, you don't have to treat it as light, but one of the things I often do treat it for is as light. Now, it would be super useful if what we could do is just like, rather than having to create a, let's say, let me scroll up here, rather than having to create this light direction value and then maybe have a color thing that I had over here, we could somehow group these all together and get the, or even better, get the properties of lights in the scene. So we could just like drag the light out of the scene list here and actually just access the properties directly. As Matthew noted last week, you can't do that, and it's kind of really frustrating because it's something that would make this whole process a lot easier. However, what you can do is completely recreate your own lights. It's a little bit of a awkward workaround. I mean, you basically just abandon using kind of Spark's built-in stuff using this process, but it's not that much work to set up. And once you've created a little patch group here for a directional light, you can just copy that and plug it in and sort of use it wherever you like. And you can create your own sort of variations of point lights and so on. So just to show you what's going on here, I've got a whole kind of group of lights. I might have to zoom out a little bit. I hope you guys can still see that. Okay, is that about okay? So I've got a whole bunch of lights here, and I've created a really basic sort of looping animation with different phases for the lights. They're just rotating around the mesh, and I plugged in a load of different colors. The other nice thing about this approach is, I say this cautiously, but there's no limit on how many lights you can add. I think with Spark internal lights, you can only add like 4, I think, is that right? Something like that. I haven't tried to add many more than this, but it hasn't sort of stopped me yet. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lights here. Let's try, and you can see what I'm doing is I'm adding the outputs of each one into the next one. So there's just sort of cascading down. So all of them get added together. I've got a power multiply function just to sort of adjust the intensity. Let's try plugging this in and see what we get. So I need to have one last multiply, because remember we want to multiply the light by the material. So if I plug the material in here, and then this one goes in here. Okay, we've got something crazy bright. Let's turn that down to 1. There we go. Okay, that's a little bit better. So stuttering a little bit just because of I think the video streaming going on as well. And let's try and make this a bit higher, 10. Okay, it's not quite the effect I was going for. I think let's take this down to 2. No, do that where it was. Okay, not really super clear what's going on with the lights. What I can maybe do actually, if I just put these in one at a time, you can see here's a red light. That's just a point light. That's not animated yet. I've got it yellow. There's a blue. You can see if I take the output of these 3, you can see the influence of the 3 of them. Maybe that's a little bit clearer. So you can start to see, I mean, you can just recreate lights pretty much exactly as you would in Spark. You just drop them into the patch graph and you sort of assign colors and position values here. A little bit more work, obviously, than doing it directly in the scene, but it's you can pretty much recreate everything that Spark does. One other interesting possibility, of course, is that you can write your own lighting functions. You don't need to be limited to point lights or directional lights in the way that Spark provides. So in point of fact, these point lights here, if I expand one of these out, uses, this is the lighting equation, which I'm not going to go into too much detail on, but this is the diffuse lighting for a point light. One little bit to draw your attention to, though, is this little section here. So you can see I've got the dot product, and then I'm multiplying it by half and adding half to it before routing it on to the rest of the calculation. That's a technique called half Lambert, something that was pioneered by Valve Software, I think. I've got a little page here on their wiki. His little graphics show you why you might want to use it. So this is Alex from original Half-Life 2, if you recognize her. And on the left is kind of how models would typically look with standard Lambertian or Lambert lighting, diffuse lighting. If the light source is to the side, you get these very sort of harsh, strong contrast between the bright and dark areas. And what they actually implemented in the game in this thing called half Lambert lighting. And all it does is, I mean, it's like you saw in Spark, right? It was super simple. It's just like, what was it? Multiply by half and add half after you get the dot product. Really, really simple, but it has this quite big effect on the graphic. And what it's effectively doing is just changing the fall off of the light as it wraps around the mesh surface. It allows more light to leak around the edge of the mesh. So if you can imagine on our sphere here, rather than being limited to, if I render this, rather than sort of stopping at the halfway point here, the light actually wraps further around in virtue of this additional calculation. And it gives you this.
So if I can just chime in, as far as I understand, the dot product goes from -1 to 1, and what this is doing is actually just moving the range up. This also has another benefit because negative values on some hardware, like in the game space, apparently do weird stuff. So that's why they do it too, just to basically normalize the output of the dot product.
Yeah, exactly. I usually clamp the output of the dot products as well to 0 to 1 range to avoid kind of weird things going on with the negative values. But yeah, that's absolutely another way to do that. You can see it has this interesting property of kind of increasing illumination. It kind of stands in for, it's like a really early way of sort of faking global illumination, because you can obviously imagine that a light source doesn't just hit an object, it sort of bounces off the environment on its way to hitting the object. And you'll get sort of illumination coming in from the sides from any given light source, as well as from the direction it's shining from. And so this gives you a sort of fake global illumination, just sort of filling out the lighting on the object without using just a sort of constant ambient lighting term, which would just be a flat color. So it's kind of a nice technique, and it's simple and cheap to implement. So I put it into my point lights, and I've used them in a project just to help with sort of giving more of a global illumination type of effect. Sorry about my rubbish multicolored lighting demo here. That's singularly underwhelming, I have to say. But hopefully you get the idea. You can create lots of these. You can create lots of lights, drag them into the scene, add them all together, and then multiply them by the material. I guess another useful bit of behavior from this approach is you can apply things like global exposure adjustment. So I can take the output of here, stick this into my multiply, and then I can adjust this exposure value globally. So I can take it down to 0.1, and all the lights simultaneously come down in sort of strength, or I can double it up to 2, and they get super blown out and super bright. So this is a nice way to fine tune your exposure in your scene with lighting without having to go back and manually adjust each and every light. And you can also apply sort of color grades to the, I mean, you wouldn't do it to lighting strictly speaking, but you could take that and run it through a sort of grading step as well. So you could sort of tint the dark shadow areas and so on. Strictly speaking, I guess we should do this with the, it's going to loop, isn't it? We should do this with the material. Let's plug that there as a final step before we plug into material. So we can change our brights to something more saturated. So our maximum white value is now this orangey color, so nothing will ever get more brighter than that orange. So that's a sort of quick, simple way of applying a sort of global color grade to materials or to objects based on using this sort of lighting output. Okay, so hopefully that's made enough sense as I've kind of gone through it. I thought I would go on to the next sort of leap up in terms of lighting. Again, Mate sort of touched on this in previous streams, and kind of again today in lots of ways. That's physically based shading using using environment maps to light a scene. Let's take a trip off to the side here to do this. So we'll just grab our material base color. We'll plug that straight into there. If you've used, as Mate just has, the physically based shader, and forgive me for going on about this, anyone who's read my posts on the forum will know this is my pet peeve with Spark AR. I'm always going on about this, but just for those who don't know, this is just something to be aware of with physically based materials. Here we've got a physically based, I've selected that from the shader type up there, okay, physically based. And we can plug the color into our albedo texture. Let's create a norm texture. And we need to plug some values into this. Let's go with, we'll set up a pack to do this. So occlusion, roughness, and metallic. And one thing, if you're going to plug values into this texture slot, one thing to be, it needs a vector 4, doesn't it? Vector 4. One thing to be aware of, you need to max out all of these sliders. These need to be on full, 100%, leave them there if you're using texture, a pack slot plugged into the texture slot. And then these values take over and apply. So occlusion, I'm going to set to 1, because we're not putting a map in there. 1 means white, so that occlusion is the ambient occlusion, which applies like a shadowing, fake shadowing from a texture to the object. If you don't want any shadowing, then you set it to 1, which is white. If you want everything to be black, then you set it to 0, and everything will get shaded. I'm going to effectively not apply that, so that's why I'm setting that to 1. Roughness, let's set that to 0.5. Metallic, we'll leave it at 0. Actually, no, let's set metallic to 1, and that can stay at 0. Okay, and then we need a environment map, and let's go. Can we still do it the old-fashioned way? Environment texture, there we go. Yeah, we'll use my old favorite, Spirit Sunrise. I haven't actually tested this in version 88, so if this suddenly works, this is going to be very, well, a joyous moment, but also kind of embarrassing for the rest of this stream. Let's import that. Okay, so we've got somewhere down here, Spirit Sunrise. So this is the environment map. It's a wraparound texture. It's like a spherical or rectangular mapping of a well-lit field. And we can go back to our material and assign it to the environment map here. Spirit Sunrise, there we go. Okay, so we've got a metallic material. You can tell because it's kind of reflected like that. We set it to be pretty rough, so let's make it not quite so rough. 0.1, so the sort of shiny metallic mirror type of material. So the issue with the physically based shader in Spark AR is that there's a difference between metallic materials like this and non-metallic materials, plastic materials, and so on. And you can see that if actually what I can do, will this work? If I drag this down, yeah, here we go. So as I drag this down, what we should really see is that the light source appears to stay from the same location with the same intensity, and it's just the material itself looks like it's a ping pong ball, a white plastic ping pong ball, something like that. But you can see as I drag metallic down, so it becomes matte, that the light seems to shift, particularly on the face mesh. You can see that the sun's sort of top right on the face mesh. As we drag down, it appears bottom left, like it's illuminating it from the other side. And there's these weird things going on with colors, and just doesn't look at all as you'd imagine the physically based shader should look. So this is indeed a bug. This is a bug in Spark AR. It's been around for quite a while now. I think I wasn't the first person who noticed it. I forget. I think it was somebody who worked at Buck Design, the agency, who first flagged it. That was over a year and a half ago, I think. It was like, well, maybe not quite, November, December of 2018. So it's been here for a while, unfortunately.
And I just want to ask at that point is that, I mean, you've talked to them about it, I suppose, because you guys are not considering, Buck found it out and Stink found it out. So it's like two big studios working with that stuff. What did they say?
I haven't had direct conversations with any of the engineers about it. I've had sort of kind of sideways conversations, I guess, with some of the guys from the Spark team that you know. They're, I think, understandably tight-lipped about the specific reasons as to why this is the case. I think it's something to do with the way the texture is imported. So it's not the actual calculations in Spark itself, to be fair to the guys who built this. I think it would work. It's just that when the environment map texture is imported into Spark, it's processed. It's pre-processed, in fact, into two separate distinct textures to handle the diffuse lighting and the specular lighting separately. And there's something wrong with the way I think it's importing or calculating the diffuse conversion, and it's inverting it on at least 2 axes, I think. So I mean, that's effectively the effect you're getting. The diffuse lighting texture that's used to look up where the lighting should come from is on the wrong side. It's inverted, and it's using different color spaces as well. There's issues with the conversion from linear to sRGB space, which is compounding the problem. So this is unfortunately makes working with the physically based shader a little difficult, to say the least. It doesn't really behave as it should, or as you'd expect it to do. It's worth saying it's fine for metallic materials. So if you're using a completely metallic material, it doesn't matter how rough it is. We can adjust the roughness. So I shouldn't be having said that. I shouldn't. That's why it doesn't work. I need to adjust it here. You can adjust the roughness. This is all correct. There's nothing wrong with the way this is behaving. All of that does look a little strange. The most part, it behaves as it should. So metallic materials, you're kind of good. But if you're using anything that's not metallic, you do get this problem where the image sort of inverts on the other side. So what can we do about that? Well, I wrote a big blog post about it. You can have a look at that on the Spark AR community. It's a bit out of date now. Some of the information sort of I got wrong and stuff. So take it with a pinch of salt. But basically, I was kind of motivated to try and fix this myself. So taking inspiration from the kind of dot product and the fact that you can calculate lighting yourself, I wrote a patch that I'm sure some of you are familiar with. Here it is. And it's new, guys. This is a new version, PBRinator 2020.2. So it's grown up a bit. It used to be called PBRinator 5 million. I don't know if that's a regression in version numbers, but it's a bit of a, as you can see, quite a big patch. It does quite a lot. It's basically designed to recreate this whole physically based shader setup that Spark provides, but fix the bug with it with the diffuse lighting. So let me grab my, where's it gone? It's up here somewhere. Right, we don't need this or this. So I'm going to change my material back to flat. Let's just take this down. Okay, just about there. So actually, I don't even need this anymore. So we've got a material out here. So I'm just going to take the texture. I'm not sure what I've got when I plug this in. Let's see what we've got plugged in. Okay, so I'm going to use textures. Okay, I'm going to leave that there for now and just see if I can get this set up correctly. So bear with me 1 second. Let's just take the output of this into here. So I'm using the new senders and receivers here. They're super helpful for if you've got very complex patch graphs with lots of like the connecting lines between them, and you're using one of them frequently. If you just plug it into a sender and then you can use a receiver here, it's really helpful to just sort of test out different values and just sort of streamline the logic a little bit. So I've got a material pre-configured here. I'll kind of pull it back to its basics, and then we'll build it back up again so you can see what's going on. So this is the main patch group here. I've just got the values separated out on the side because for some reason in version 88 they seem to 0 if you don't have the like a value node plugged into them. So hopefully that's going to keep us safe from that bug happening. So you can see we've got a rotating environment map here. You can just about see the reflections. What I'll do is I'll unplug the environment map rotation just so it stays static, and I'm going to set the normal strength to 0. And what have we got? Occlusion, roughness, metallic. Yeah, so this is let's just set this to metallic so we get something closer to Sprue at sunrise. I'm using a different environment map here. So this is like a studio lighting environment map. So here I've got a sort of metallic finish to the objects. And you can see that if so this is the same ORM sort of grouping that I had for the physically based shader in Spark, same kind of setup. If I change the third one, M for metallic, ORMS, from 1, which makes it metallic, down to 0, the lighting kind of stays more consistent. Obviously, it changes because it's no longer a metallic material. It's a plastic or some kind of non-metallic type of substance. Could be what's that, China or yeah. We'll stick with plastic. I think that's probably the best reference material.
Hey, so Matt, a question in the chat, and I'm curious about that as well. How does that perform compared to the native implementation of the shader?
It's an excellent question, and one I was so fearful of as I went to set about building this thing. It's worth saying I didn't kind of set out to just build it from scratch, from the ground up, and you know, work on it all the way up to what you see here. So it's the product of lots of different kind of experiments and different kinds of things that, Matt, you've been looking at, I know, and you showed on the stream. So working from the basics of just that kind of dot product lighting technique on to creating a reflection map, so just being able to do like a mirror reflection like you saw if I set it to metallic. That was a kind of one of the next steps. And then adding in like a normal map, so you can have like a bump map on the surface of the material. That was a whole nother step. And it's worth saying I was kind of looking at different tutorials for different kind of sections of this, so I wasn't following like one process all the way through. I think that's led to some of its bugs and deficiencies in some of the earlier versions. So I'm feeling more confident about this version being correct. I think it has probably some inefficiencies still. In terms of performance, I think, you know, having built it all up, I mean, I've had probably 15 of these all running concurrently, assigned to different materials. And although the IDE Spark Studio gets pretty slow, the actual filter itself that's created seems absolutely fine, you know.
So Lasse asked the other day in the forum about draw calls, and I think you answered that you can actually do like a little, you know, performance monitor type thing in the Spark player on mobile, right? If you click the FPS. Yes,
exactly. I must confess I haven't actually tried doing a sort of apples for apples comparison there. But yes, if you open up the Spark simulator on your phone and load in an effect, you have to have an effect loaded. It only works with an effect loaded. You'll see you've got a little FPS meter at the top of the screen, hopefully saying 30 FPS. If you tap that, you get a little drop down, which gives you some technical information about the scene running within the Spark AR player. Significantly, it tells you the draw calls. Draw calls are a sort of key measure of performance. You generally don't want to have many draw calls. Exactly how Spark calculates them relative to the meshes you load into your scene and the textures, I wouldn't hazard a guess at right now. I think we need to do a bit more investigation just to sort of tease out exactly how it draw calls relate to the way it structures the scene. But yeah, that would be a useful indication for sure. If it's got sort of a bazillion draw calls in there, then things aren't good. But yeah, I mean, I've used this on commercial projects. I've had like 15 of them running concurrently. The IDE slows down, but the actual filters seem to be fine. So I think they're okay. Ideally, you know, you're not using loads of physically based materials anyway in a scene. They are expensive to calculate, even the Spark native ones. So, you know, if you can get away with using a standard shader or even a flat shader, use those by preference. These are only for kind of special materials that you want to have that kind of quality that benefits from this kind of complex approach. So yeah, so I mean, I tried to design it to be as sort of useful as possible. One of the big challenges is obviously bringing in lighting. So whereas with Spark you can import one single texture, sprue, sunrise, this kind of thing, just as a single texture. For this to work, you have to do the pre-processing step that Spark does internally in order to separate out what's called the diffuse and the specular lighting pass. So I've got these textures down here, and I can show you, I've got like a test texture, which just helps me sort of see what's going on in the scene. So I'm going to drop this in. So this is this square down the corner. This is the specular texture, and you can see I've got this kind of weird stepped cascading series of these images. If I were to open these in an image editor, let's do that quickly. Actually, I'm going to grab that over there. Bear with me. So if I go Spark AR, samples. Super Sunday, Super Spark Sunday textures. Yeah, so let's look at this. So you can maybe just about see that as the image scales down, it's sort of blurring out. And there's actually changes slightly in terms of intensities towards the smaller versions of the image. So they're not identical, although they look the same as a distance. They're effectively more blurry. Let me just open the studio one so you can better see what's going on there. So here's the sort of the sharpest version at the top, and then they get progressively more blurry towards the bottom and smaller in size. There's a reason for that, which I'll explain in a second. So this is the specular lighting. Let's drag this one in to our scene, and we plug it into this slot here, specular bitmaps. There you can see our kind of lighting reflected in the scene. And then we need the other half of the equation, which is this one, this super blurry one. This is the diffuse irradiance. So this is this provides the diffuse lighting. And if I plug that in here, then we should restart this. I think Spark might have crashed. Or not. Strange. Let's try dragging these back in. That's weird. Okay, haven't fixed all the bugs clearly. But yeah, the basic requirement is to have both of these textures in a physically based lighting setup, and they provide the sort of two different components of the lighting equation. So how are we doing for time? 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it's fine. You know, we have time. I mean, it's up to you. I don't care.
Okay.
We can do this for hours.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll have a dive in here. I'm not going to attempt to explain everything in here because we'll be here for a week. But just to give you guys a kind of look at the inner workings of this thing, let's open it up and have a look. So I'm going to give us maximum space here. I'm going to zoom out just so you can see the whole thing. Oh, that's as far out as, oh, here we go. Okay, so that's pretty much all the calculations involved in this shader. So yeah, Lassie asked a good question when he says, how does it perform? There's a lot going on here, but they're exactly the same calculations that well, I say exactly. In principle, they're the same kinds of calculations that the Spark AR physical shader is doing, at least in large part. So they're both doing the same calculations, same work's being done on the GPU under the hood. I'm sure that the Spark one's probably better optimized than this one is when it gets compiled or translated for implementation. But they seem to be comparable in performance, so I think you can give them a go. I uploaded this or an earlier version of it to the Spark AR community. You can grab it off just off the community's file repo there. It's not on GitHub, but you can have a play around with this. So I'll zoom in at this end.
Vibber is asking, was it tested on different devices? And also, guys, again, like, I never know who's who. Like, all the names on Twitch are weird and different. So maybe, I don't know, introduce yourselves in the chat.
Yes.
But was it tested on different devices?
Yeah, we've done, as I say, it's been using commercial products. So we do fairly light testing on different products. I mean, I wouldn't like to vouch for this on like a low-end sort of Android device. It may well start to chug a little bit. It's you know, the projects that we tend to work on at my studios tend to be sort of fairly high-end in terms of their ambitions. So, you know, the clients are looking for some premium-looking materials and lighting effects. So it's been worth the effort to kind of put this sort of thing together. But they are willing to sort of forego, I guess, performance on, or at least the breadth of devices that it works on. That's not appropriate for every scenario, obviously, I appreciate. So by all means, reject this patch group if you feel the performance isn't there. It's as good as I think I can get it in terms of realism in Spark. I haven't really focused on optimizing it for performance. It's been primarily focused on trying to create a realistic, physically based shader, implementing as best I can understand it the sort of principles that underpin physically based shading models. So realism rather than performance, I think, is the key thing there. We'll see how we go with this. I'll start at the left-hand edge. I'll walk through it. I may lose people at various stages. I'll probably lose myself, to be honest, but we'll see how we do. So all these nodes here, and you can see I've been playing around with this just yesterday, in fact, hopefully fixing things, although I may have broken the diffuse lighting from the looks of things. But this is all being used to calculate the normal map. So the normal map, let's actually go back and plug that in so we can see what's going on. What did we do? We said normal strength 1. And just so you can see this, normal map, occlusion, roughness, 1.2. I think I've broken the diffuse map somehow. Let's try that again. Rough shininess, 1, occlusion. That's going to be unfortunate. I'll tell you what, I'm going to reopen this file. Bear with me 1 second. Let's just close. Start changes. I'll try that again. Sorry about this. Okay, and we had materials up here somewhere. Delete that. Drag that down. Sorry, scrolling on this computer is a bit tortuous. There we go. Okay, and we just needed to plug that straight in to there. Okay, back as we were. So you can hopefully see, it might be a little subtle on the video stream. Let me see if I can make it a bit more obvious. There is a normal map applied to this material, and it creates a sort of bumpy effect on the surface. So, oops, let's just zoom in. If I create normal strength 2, hopefully you can see that there's a, you can see there's an effect there, like a bumpy effect on the surface. Is that short, Mate?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm seeing it. Yeah.
Cool. Good. Okay, so this bump map, I mean, it's in the physically based shader. It's even in the standard shader. You can apply a normal map in the standard shader. They're special textures. They look like this sort of thing. Usually, this is a test texture that I've been using. I'm actually making this one from a noise texture that I found lying around the internet somewhere. I don't know if any of you recognize that one.
I think it's actually I made that. I think.
I think you did, Mate. Yeah.
At least I made a similar one. It's like a tiling texture which RGB has different octaves of the noise, yeah. Right? Yeah.
No, I was joking. This is absolutely your texture. It's been.
Okay.
Yeah, ever since you shared it, I've been using it on pretty much everything. This is
super very good. Yeah, very good.
Just to talk about this briefly, just to give some kudos to Matty on this one. So here's the texture here. So it you can see it's got this kind of colorful look to it. Basically, it's how can we quickly show this? Let me grab the material out for a second. Can I grab this and pull this back? The guys who are used to coding are probably screaming at the screens like right now saying, this is why you don't use the patch graph.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for some things it just doesn't make a lot of sense, but whatever.
So this is Mate's tiling multi-channel noise texture. You can see it's got very colorful appearance. The reason it's so useful is it has different octaves, the noise value in the R, G, and B channels. So you can, we've got a swizzle. Actually, I'll just dump one in here, swizzle X. So you can see if I do, actually let's do XXX1. So if I just pull out the X value, you can see that's the noise that's in the X channel, or the R channel, I guess. If we do YYY1, you'll see it's a different what we call a different octave. So you have more granular detail effectively in the noise texture. and then with ZZZ1, finally, super kind of detailed noise texture. And it tiles as well, so you can repeat it over the surface. Super helpful, use it all the time. Matty, you shared it in the community, right, somewhere? Or?
Yeah. So basically, the story of that texture is that when I try to make a Perlin noise in patches, and then I was so excited that it worked, and then I tried it on mobile, and I was and it didn't work. I was like, oh shit! And then I was okay, fuck it, I'm just gonna do a texture, and then I prepared that one. Yeah, it's super useful for sure. You can what you can also do, which is kind of cool. You can obviously take the different channels and animate them with different directions and speeds and stuff like that, and multiply together to make really nice looping, moving noise things. Very unfortunate, I think. Very much a pity that we cannot use it for vertex displacement.
Sadly, yes, not at the moment. Although I think that's we can talk about vertex textures maybe towards the end of this session. So just briefly on this one, just to make things a little more complicated if they weren't too complicated already, I'm using this noise texture to generate a normal map, and I'm doing that using this patch graph here. All that does is take the grayscale height from one of the channels, the Z channel that we looked at of Matty's noise texture, and I convert it from a black and white height scale to a normal map that has this kind of coloration here. I've just like an idiot moved the material over the other side. Let's take it back. Just so we can see how that looks. In its raw form, it's pretty subtle. I've got a multiplier here that'll increase the intensity. So you can see that's the kind of normal map that's generated from the texture. And that just gets plugged straight into the normal map slot of the PBRinator patch. Okay, so let's go and have a look at what we've got in here. Oh, done it again. Sorry. There we go. So yeah, so this, we'll go back to the left edge. So I was playing around with this yesterday, knowing I was going to be showing this off on the stream, and managed to fix some bugs that were bothering me about the implementation of this in some of the older versions. I shared a project on the channel like a month ago maybe. Some of you might recognize this post. Don't know if you recognize this one. I'm just going to pause it at a key moment. Right there. So this bedspread, this was for a project for H&M, tie-in with a film called To All the Boys I've Loved on Netflix, and we recreated a kind of bedroom set from the scene, from the film rather. And I used this is the project where I had like 15 of those PBR patches all kind of grouped up. So
and can I ask how, did you actually, because that's something sorry, I'm just gonna ask my question before I get to the conclusion. So did you use the vertex colors to store UV informations?
Yes, I did. That was I was going to kind of come around to that as because it was exactly the technique you showed of your GI technique. So we baked the UV coordinates for this room into the vertex colors, so that the objects could retain their individual UVs for certain textures.
Because the thing is, like, this is essentially what I showed earlier, right? But now the thing is why I chose to store the values for the light in the vertex colors directly instead of using a UV set is something which I'm sorry, where you were, I didn't want to interrupt you, but this is something I'm super interested in, so maybe we can just do a little tangent.
No problem.
Okay, so I'm just gonna show you something because I'm super curious about the maybe you have found a solution for that. So basically, can you see my screen?
Bear with me 1 second. I have to go back to. I might have to, if I mute the Hangouts and then.
Yeah, we can just join the thing again. But no, I mean, stay on because just make. I don't know. I want to hear your answers to my questions.
Yes. Okay. There's.
Well, just open a window with the Twitch stream, and then you see what I'm doing.
Yeah. I see. I want to mute that.
And then you can mute the stream just so that I see.
Yeah. Okay. All good. I can see now.
Yeah. So can you see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's see. Let's say I have this sphere, right? And now I have, obviously, if I want to just quickly, actually, this is also probably a cool tip. If you want to visualize UV coordinates and you don't have a texture handy, you can just obviously build them yourself, because we know that UV is just from 0 to 1 in the R channel, so red, right? And then from the other way around, we add another gradient and say, hey, we have the green channel for our V direction. So that's basically what it is, right? So this is sometimes they are flipped, so we can just flip it around.
Sure.
So that's from okay. And now, and now I have to also put that here to add so that we see both. So now the thing is, you see here's a hard cut, right? And you probably know already what I'm getting at. Is that because one vertex in world space, let's say, or in 3D space, can actually have two positions in UV space, right?
Yes.
So how did you get around that? Basically, what I'm saying is like this vertex here, right? It's like, that's the same vertex here, but in UV space, it's here and it's here. And the reason is, again, like if you have a ball or like an Easter egg and you wrap a wrapper around it and you unfold that wrapper, then you will have problems with your green screen. That's weird. Okay, you will have the same point at this point and there. So how did you address that issue?
I'm going to have to disappoint you, Mate, because I have to be completely honest. I was working with a 3D artist on this project, and he did the baking of the vertex colors in 3D Studio Max, which I don't know. So he was kind of on his own trying to solve these problems.
All right. Well, okay. So let's just maybe, if you guys ever want to do that, this might be valuable information. So basically, what you would need to do is split these points. So basically, you would have to select all the edge points in UV space, right? And say split those points. In workspace, and then if you would apply, then basically every point becomes 2 points in workspace. But the problem is, this is cool if I'm doing it for one sphere, but if here it is split, so you split it. And then you have you have two objects. So it might work differently in Cinema 4D. But basically, the idea is that you have the same amounts of points in UV space, also in 3D space. So if you apply, because this coordinate is obviously the other way than this, and if you just apply it right now, if I do my little trick here again, and say, hey, let's do what I did earlier with the lighting. Let's say I want to use fields, and I want a shader field, and then I want to take this shader here, and then I want to put it here, paste. So see, that's what I'm saying. You get this here. So this is the UVs you want, and it's offset by 1 point for some reason. And then this is what you get. And the reason being is that this point exists twice basically in UV space and only once in 3D space. So what you do is you select them, split them. But like if you have a scene like this one we're talking about, it's like a crazy amount of work to do that manually. So
yeah, like I say, I'm curious now because I appreciate the challenge. I think I'll have to hit up the 3D artist and see if he can just talk me through the process in 3D Max.
That would be amazing, actually. I would be super curious about it. This is like a totally niche thing, right? Which like probably, I don't even know. It took me some time to wrap my head around why that fucking gradient happened. And but it's obvious. It's not I thought it's a cinema again that can't handle that, but it's obviously part of the logic if you think about it that way.
No, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Just while we're talking about this, one other thing to be aware of with this technique of baking the UV coordinates into vertex colors, fundamentally it works. I mean, the scene was created using exactly that approach, so it has the exactly same technique you used, the global illumination technique of baking lighting, rendering the lighting for the scene. And then, but then loading in individual textures. So for example, all these materials on the bed you see here, they're actually tiling textures. They're small kind of repeating albedo patterns and normal patterns and things. So those were using a different sort of UV set. So they had their UVs for the light map were baked into vertex colors, I think. And then they had their own UVs loaded in Spark. But one of the issues when you bake UV coordinates into vertex colors, and I'm not 100% sure whether it's Spark or whether it's the exporters from 3D Studio Max or Cinema 4D or the importer in Spark, but somewhere along that chain, the values get converted to 8-bit precision. So effectively, like the colors we have, like from 0 to 255, you get the same level of precision for the coordinates in the vertex.
Well, as far as I know, the specifications just allow for 8-bit precision for the vertex colors. The GLSL specifications actually.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's not an unreasonable thing. I mean, they are supposed to be colors after all. You're not generally supposed to be, hacking UV coordinates into something that's supposed to be containing color information. But it's close enough that it looks okay. So you can, in this still here, you can just see up in this, if you can see my mouse, I don't know if you can. There's a sort of dark shadow behind this white shelf on the wall here. That's not actually a deliberate shadow. That's just a slight misregistration of the light map, and it's just some black is sort of bleeding through from the light map.
Yeah.
With the proper floating point UV coordinates, that wouldn't have shown up. Fortunately, a lot of the points where the errors were looked like sort of contact shadows anyway, so it was kind of actually helped the look of the thing, but it was we kind of got away with that one, I think.
I mean, so one thing I noticed actually when I saw it is that everything. Sorry if I just maybe I'm curious about what your thoughts are here. Everything's very shiny, and so did you use also the shadow map as an occlusion map or something? Because it feels like the pillows are very shiny also from the bottom. Yeah,
so this was the thing I was going to show you here. Is this crazy shininess going on the edge of the quilt here, and the edges of the pillows, and the bottom of the pillow. That's partly a bug that was in the PBR shader patch that I created, which I only found out, or I think fixed yesterday, preparing for this stream. So thank you for this opportunity, because it's allowed me to fix a glaring bug there. The other reason there's pink on the underside of the pillow is because we, in addition to using the baked lighting that and the technique you went through at the start of the stream, we're also using a environmental light for specular reflections. So this is a kind of shiny material. So it's got, if I go back to Spark here, in the same way as I was showing you the diffuse, sorry. So this is the diffuse lighting for the studio lighting setup in the bottom right here. Just make that a bit bigger. It's a bit of a grey blob. There's not much sort of variation in lighting here. But there's the same environment has this specular cascade that I was talking about, which provides sort of shiny reflections. So we were using the diffuse lighting was coming from the light map bake. So we just baked the diffuse contribution into the light map. And then we added in this specular reflection map for the scene, so that shiny objects in the room could have specular reflections and they could be view dependent. So as you moved around the room, the reflections would change. You can actually see it if I play the video here. Towards the end of the video, the camera moves very quickly just over to the bed, and you can sort of see the reflections shifting on the surface of the bed. So
what do you use to do the baking of the stuff?
We did these, as I say, that jumped just as the move happened. Let me see if I can get that again. This was all the bakes were done in 3D Studio Max in this case, but I've done them in Blender as well. So that's not.
Because I used to use this tool, which was actually really nice. There you could do all of that stuff. You basically just would give it an environment map, and it does.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's. Let me stop doing this. I'll fire it up here so you guys can see.
Yeah, we can see it.
CMFT Studio.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah. I couldn't come up with the name again. Yeah, that's the one. That's really cool. Then because there you can also do like this custom stuff where you say different sizes, different information, different maps, and so on and so forth. You can also do this. They have this really. I don't know if this is supported, but they have this really cool channel compression stuff where you put like different things in different light channels, and they have like also they have this cool texture format. What's it called? I don't know, DDX and shit like that. It's a really, really nice tool. So this here at CMFT Studio, again, like it's a very niche thing, I suppose, but definitely love that one.
Yeah, I mean,
and I put it in the chat.
I'm sorry, I'm going to forget the guy's name. I think it's Adriano. Somebody actually really helpfully created an After Effects script that would do the same job in After Effects. I haven't tested it much, but if I can maybe dig that out and put a link to that somewhere, I'll post in Spark because it's a little bit fiddly to set this up, but it's in essence necessary to create these two different.
It's essentially what Spark does internally if you put an HDR in. So they and funny enough, actually, that might be the reason why the PBR is not working, because maybe this tool just flips the diffuse map or stuff like that. Well,
the output it generates, at least because I've used it to generate the ones that I'm using in Spark here. These were built using that tool. I had to manually go and stack these cascades, this stepped effect, but. These were generated okay from there, but I think Spark, does that process of separating out the because obviously you can load in any HDR right in Spark, so it does that separation job itself internally, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's getting there's a bug somewhere in that conversion process into the diffuse.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, listen, I'm not going to go through this too laboriously. Just the key sections on this one. So. The normal map we see here, the bumpy normal map, these are the calculations here, and this is where I was getting that kind of error, the sort of super bright sort of fringes on some objects. That was to do with the tangent space vector. I was just using it in its raw form. It's the little thing here. There we go. I should be using the model view space, it looks like. I must confess, some of these things I kind of plug a Vertex transform in and then try all the transforms to see which one actually gives me the result I'm looking for. I've done that on more than one occasion. But
that's interesting, because that's really interesting that you say that, because I felt the same way for forever. Ooh, Shark Time! And just recently with the Vertex displacement, I actually got to the bottom of it and looked at everything and kind of figured it out. And this is really cool. And this is something maybe I can talk about on the next stream to explain a little bit, because it's actually, if you look at the OpenGL pipeline, it's actually really straightforward. That helped me understand that a lot. So that is good. Interesting that it's the same way for you, because so I might talk about it on the next stream. That's cool.
Sure. A lot of these things I've just gone onto the web and just searched as you do for a tutorial, and then do the best to kind of translate what's often sort of GLSL code or HLSL into the patch graph equivalent. And for the most part, that kind of works as an approach, but sometimes you get something later down on in the patch will be inverted or something like that. So the logic doesn't always sort of translate sort of seamlessly from one environment to the other. But the essence here is I'm generating the kind of normal information, pulling in the normal map input, and multiplying the two together. Well, generating the matrix here that's used to convert the normal map to the normal space or rather tangent space that's used to apply the normal map. Delete these unnecessary ones that are confusing things. And then this is the, I guess this is a thing worth mentioning, just based on what we talked about earlier. So the view direction is something that I guess confuses a lot of people, and it confused me for quite a while at first. I used to just sort of think the view direction was just straight down the z-axis, and you could just sort of put 0, 0, 1, and that would count as the viewing direction. That's fine if your scene is all a child of the focal distance up in the scene menu. But if it's not, if you're using like a back camera world space scene and it's using a plane tracker or something like that, then you're no longer looking down the z-axis. The camera, as it moves, has a different angle relative to the new center of the scene, which is the plane tracker. So you have to use this more involved calculation to work out the view direction for the vertices. And this was a source of quite a few bugs for me. It took a while to get this kind of worked out, having to multiply things by the inverse view, having already transformed them. There may be other ways to do this. This is one that's kind of worked for me, and it's kind of the logic, I guess, is baked into this implementation. So people who know a bit more about this stuff may be able to pick up some holes in the way I've done it here. But this pairing of the surface normal and the view direction, that's a group that I now refer back to quite a lot whenever I'm doing other kind of weird shader things like anisotropic shaders or what was the other one? Subsurface scattering, I think, maybe use this sort of block here. So it's worth reading up about this stuff, but also if you kind of want to pinch this block of code here, they're useful sort of pairing to be able to use. These are where we're splitting out the. Let me just move this up. These two here in the middle of the screen. This one's for the specular calculation, so that's this reflection texture here. And all it's doing is basically reflecting the view direction about the surface normal in order to find a lookup location on the texture where it's going to retrieve a pixel from that's going to light the surface at the point where the view direction is reflected. That's a long sentence, and I could do with a diagram here to explain what's going on. But it's if you look up reflection mapping or image-based lighting, those are the kind of tutorials that will kind of walk you through this process. It's basically just like a reflection shader. It's just a way of finding out, where you should retrieve a pixel from a texture like this in order to reflect it on about the surface based on the view direction. This one here is the diffuse, so it's the other texture, the blurry one. This is slightly simpler. Well, it's the same basic calculation. They're both like reflecting from about the surface normal in order to retrieve the correct texture location. Okay, so there's a big group up here, which let's look at this one. So this group here relates to the cascade of textures here. So it's basically being used to select the appropriate texture based on the level of roughness. You can see it takes the roughness value here from the worm texture up. So here's my worm texture input, just being unpacked. And I'm taking the roughness output, and it's going into this whole sort of calculation here. And I'm basically, this is just a UV offset calculation, just to work out which bit of the texture to sample from. In earlier versions of this, I had a step basically switching between the different levels, so you get like a hard cut between the different blurring levels. I put a smooth step in, so it should smoothly interpolate between the different texture areas, so you get smooth sort of shifts of roughness as you change the roughness value. And then down here we have Schlick's Fresnel approximation. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of this, so actually let's just go back to the, where am I? Back to main. See if we can show the effect of this. Yeah, we should be able to. So if I don't know if this is going to work, let's give this a go. I'm going to unplug the specular mip maps. And I'm going to make this a color instead. What we should do, yeah, there we go. So you can see there's this red fringe to the edge of the objects. This is what's called the Fresnel effect, and it's basically one of the physical properties of materials. Is that if you look at the edge of an object, because you're looking at it at a glancing angle, a significant proportion of the light behind it is reflected off that edge. You can try this in the real world if it's probably dark where I am right now, so it's not a great time to be doing this test. But on a brightly lit day, or if you look at it, like hold up like an apple or something like that in front of your monitor, if you look at the edges of the apple, you'll see that they're almost entirely reflecting the light from the monitor behind them. This is what's called the Fresnel effect. So we're recreating that effect here. So I've replaced the specular bitmap with just a solid red color, and I've got a little Fresnel power controller I've got at the bottom. Strictly speaking, physically plausible results should use a value of 5 here, apparently, but artistically you might want to change that effect so you can bring in the specular reflections so they encompass the object more. If I plug this back in, you should be able to see that more of the reflections sort of getting pulled in around the object. And if I take this back to 3 or 5, it gets sort of pushed back to more of the edges, more of a realistic kind of look for things. So that whole process, or that phenomenon, is called Fresnel reflection, I think. There's a quite complex equation involving indexes of refraction and all sorts of things like that that physically details how that works. However, it's too complicated to be calculated in sort of real time. So there's something called a Schlick's Fresnel approximation, which is a sort of simplification of that whole phenomenon that does run in real time, and that's the calculation just there. This is previously I was just using a simple sort of power function, but this is the proper, the full sort of calculation. Again, if you look up any kind of articles on physically based shading, they'll tell you the sort of principle behind this and go into some detail on the equations if you're interested. Okay, nearly finished here. Last sort of steps on this one are basically combining the metallic with the non-metallic variations of the material. So I've got a value that I can use to say whether it's metallic or not, same as the Spark physical shader. And this is fairly simple. So the one version of the shader calculations get routed through to what's called dielectric. So dielectrics are anything that aren't metallic, I think, although things like gemstones might be a special case. And then metallic is anything that has metallic properties, and they have slightly different reflection properties. Metallics will tint reflections based on their base color, whereas dielectrics just reflect the environment without tinting them. So there's these slightly different sort of calculations that are used to apply the reflective texture lookups appropriately for each, and then they're mixed together here with a mixed value. I'm adding in some ambient occlusion as well as a final step. And then, I skipped over the base color. So the base color comes in, the albedo base color comes in up here, over here. So this is base color texture coming in. I've just put in some simple hue, saturation, lightness adjustments within the patch. Don't need to have those, they're not part of physically based shading, but it's kind of handy to have them just to fine tune things. And then, yeah, so that gets routed into the dielectric and metallic calculations, bit of ambient occlusion towards the end, and then that gets routed out to the final output. So that was a pretty whistle-stop tour. Sorry if that didn't make a lot of sense to people. I appreciate there's a lot of information and words to take on. I learned all this stuff just by going online, searching for physically based shaders and physically based materials. There's Substance have a really good one. It's in 2 parts. If you go to the Substance website, they've got a really nice PDF download on physically based shading and materials. A lot of the theory I learned from that. I have to say Google did a really good one. They have a real-time shader library called Filament, I think. I don't know if anyone's used it. It's got amazing documentation. Again, I should post a link to this thing, but it's well worth a read up. It's
What is that? What's it called?
I think it's called Filament. Let's have a look.
Oh yeah, Noland has it already. Filament. Yeah.
These are the kind of situations when I'm glad Nolan's on the call, because you can always depend on Nolan.
Real-time physically based render engine for Android. Okay.
He has the information.
Interesting.
Shout out to Nolan, by the way.
Wow, that looks great.
Yeah. No, it's super useful documentation if you're ever confused about this stuff. So worth to read through another time. Okay, I'm nearly finished here. I'm going to maybe do 5-10 minutes more, if that's okay, Matty. Just
sure. Yeah. Take your
try
time.
and bring it around full circle to kind of what you were talking about earlier. So
yes.
This is the physically based shading is designed to work with these reflective kind of environment maps, and that's how this is kind of set up to work. But obviously, sometimes you want to be able to bring in standard lights as well into the scene, these kinds of things. So I did actually make an attempt to do this kind of early on in this process, and you actually spotted that there were some legacy patches in there that were trying to do that kind of thing. I haven't yet got around to doing that, but I guess the big frustration for me is that with these kind of custom lighting patches, even though you can kind of create groups and try and simplify the whole process, the position values here they don't take any account of what's going on in the scene up here. So if you move your objects, let's say, out of the focal distance hierarchy and into the world hierarchy or something like that, you've changed the world origin, but these values don't know that. They haven't been updated to reflect the fact that you've had a change in hierarchy. Even something as simple as rotating the camera will confuse them, because the relationship between where the view direction is and light position is sort of potentially shifted. So it's a really kind of frustrating shortcoming of this approach, and almost rendering it sort of unusable. But I mean, what you really want to be able to do, right, is be able to say add object. Let's say put in a direction point light. I think have the point light here. And you want to be able to drag this into your scene just here, and have some outputs from this, which are its position and its intensity and its color, and then you could just route those straight into this calculation or into the PBR shader and work on those kind of values. But Spark doesn't let you do that. I know from last week's stream, Matty, you've written a little code to patch bridge to script to kind of do this job of telling you where the light is based on using a null. Am I right in that? Yeah. So this is my one discovery this afternoon, having not realized that you did all that last week. Let me just open up my other project.
Okay, this is I think this I can feel Shark Time coming up.
Well, it's called Close But No Cigar, this project, so you can tell it's slightly disappointing. Let's discard those changes. And here we go. So
all right.
Here was me sort of playing around with your vertex displacement thing. So we've got a wavy face going on.
Yeah.
And I was building myself up to try and tackle vertex displaced lighting. I was trying to think, well, okay, I need to get lights into the scene. How can I do that? And my first thought was to try and I don't want to spoil the surprise. I'm going to scroll up here. To do something similar, to have like a proxy for the light source and bring that in. But obviously I'm not a script guy, so I wasn't going to go and write any scripts to do that kind of process. But I found a way you can do it in the patch graph.
Okay.
So I actually just dragged a plane in here. I guess null would do as well. I mean, so this actually, let me just take a step back. So my first thought was, let's use a point light, and I dragged this in. I had an object, and obviously it doesn't give you much to work with, right? You just get this object down. But relatively recently, I don't think it was 88, I think it was 86 or 87, they introduced bounding box.
True.
Yeah, and Davide, when he was talking about it in the community, said you can also use it to tell the offset or vector from one object to another, hint, hint. And I was curious what he meant by hint, hint. So this has been bugging me. I haven't had a chance to look at it properly for a while. What I have been doing is reading Nolan's post on the subject, because he did quite a lot of testing on it and was saying that it seemed to be clipped to or only related to object space, not world space. so the bounding box seemed to just wouldn't respect changes to the object. Now that may well still be true. I haven't certainly my early tests, were the same. I kind of agree with Nolan on that one, but I wanted to kind of give it another go just in case. And my first thought was to try that with the point light, because it has an object output, and here's bounding box. Let me unplug this for a sec. That's gonna kill that. But anyway, you'll get the idea. If I, well, tell me what, I'm starting a new one. Bounding box. Put this back in so we don't kill the scene. So yeah, you can. Bounding box has an object as an input. So I thought,
that's amazing, man. Okay, Shark Time. Oh no!
Well,
hold on.
It's,
Shark Time. All right. So potentially exciting, but unfortunately, if you take the outputs of this thing and stick them into, let's say, a value node, and give this vector 3. Yeah.
So we'd expect the output to be some kind of number like 0.1 or 0.5, because that's where the coordinates are in either object space or world space. But look at the number here. It's like 340,282,300 something else. So this looks like some weird kind of precision limited extent of the scene or something like that. I have no idea what these numbers are, but they seem to reflect, and they're the same for everything. So any one of these points, if you don't know what bounding box does, by the way, you get 8 points reflect a cube around your object that you plug in, and they give you the kind of bounding box coordinates of the 8 corner points of that cube that bounds the object. But yeah, whichever one you plug in, you seem to get the same values. Actually, no, that's not true. That's negative. So I did actually think maybe if I could take the two opposite corners and average them, I'd get something in the middle that was then the true value, but it doesn't seem to work. Yeah, not huge success there. But then I thought, well, okay, we don't have to have point lights. We could use proxies, as you have, use nulls or something. I've actually put in a directional light. This is a plane I'm using, and this works. This you get the actual.
Oh, cool.
You get the actual coordinates. Now, when I say actual coordinates, they don't work in isolation, and this took me a while to work out what you need to do. So, we're doing our technique of taking the local position and converting to model view, because we're transforming vertices as you've done in your previous streams, and we're trying to find the location. So this group here gives us the location of the vertices of the mesh, and we want to find the offset from the location of the vertices to our object. So I'm just pulling out one of the corners of its bounding box. You could take the opposite corners and.
I mean, if you try using a null, because that has no size, so all positions of the bounding box should be.
I must confess I haven't yet, but that would be a more sensible thing to do than a plane, which does have size.
Let's try it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do an object. Let's go null.
So because the output of the bounding box for a null object should be just 8 times the same value, right?
Yeah, exactly. So let's see what we get from there. Oop. Uh-oh. No, that looks like it's also got the weird 340 million something or other.
And can you just divide that by something?
Although, hang on. So does my proxy.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not updating properly.
It's just not showing you the right.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, I'm saying all this. I'm hoping this is going to work now, because I should have had separate values. Anyway, the conversion you seem to need to do is, if you take the bounding box coordinates out as x, y, z, 0, multiply them by the model view transform.
Yeah.
That then seems to give you the right view space coordinates of the object relative to local position. And I'm using model view here rather than model view project.
So the bounding box is in object space.
Yes, so the bounding box, I think, is object space, which would confirm, that would tally with Nolan's observations about it seeming to be bound to object space rather than taking account of world space.
Well, it makes sense, because of course, because you want to. I mean, it's really not too hard, actually. Should we maybe just look into that real quick, or you want to keep going? I forget. I don't know. Keep going.
See if we get some interesting results at the end of the day. I can't even remember really where I got to with this, to be honest. But yeah, there we go. Some lighting on the mesh. So this is based on a null object in the scene, and I can, I guess, grab that and move it. And we should. Am I grabbing the right thing here? Maybe if I restart. No.
No, you need to move the. Sorry, I think I confused you. You need to move the directional light because that's.
Oh yeah, sorry. Of course.
Yeah. Sorry, I confused you with all my tangents about other things.
Yeah, so I can shift that. Yeah, I can just type values in here, and this will shift the lighting about, and I guess we could animate that and so on.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
But yeah, so you can do this technique of having a proxy for the light in the patch graph.
Yeah, without having to go through script. That is actually amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, at the same time, Spark could just give us a fucking position output on an object.
That would be nice. I think, I mean, I posted on this a while back. I think the reason they don't allow you to do that is because you can imagine a situation where you dragged a light out here.
Yeah.
And if, let's say, you assigned some color and position to it with some patches in the middle here, and then you routed the outputs to its color and intensity and position over here, you can see that you'd have this circuitous kind of loop where you were taking as input its color and position, processing it, and then assigning them back into its color and position. And I think that would create a sort of...
Yeah, well, you know, but also, like, if you do a loop with the other patches, it also complains. You could probably do the same thing with that, but... So
I think... I mean, it would be so useful to be able to just access light properties just by dragging the light into the patch graph.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that would be so helpful. But in the meantime, this is as good as I've got.
Yeah, that's amazing, actually. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So to sum it up, basically, bounding box gives you the bounding box in object space. So what you want to do is take a null, which has 0 dimensions, so you get 8 times the same value, multiply that by model view, and there you go. You have the object, the world space coordinates of the object.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now the question: does that include camera? That would be fucking great.
Yeah, that'd be interesting as well. Well, Davide gave us a very mysterious hint. So maybe he's the camera.
Yeah, I mean, how about just telling us what the fuck's going on?
I don't know. I like a bit of mystery in the new releases.
So I suppose you love the documentation.
It's a long time since I've read the documentation.
I'm just kidding, because it's always just never updated. So there's a lot of mystery.
There is a lot of mystery. No, I think bashing away at things until you figure things out yourself is often the way to go on this stuff.
No, I mean, and the cool thing about it, I think what I enjoy a lot about it is that you learn a lot that way, right? Like, I mean, you know, all this shit we're talking about, this is actually something which this is like it's a base knowledge, essentially. Like, if you want to, you know, program any 3D stuff, and I have never bothered to look into that because, you know, usually tools make it very easy for you. But I think it is ironic that they make this tool, which is supposed to be easy, so they strip down the functionality, which then in the end forces you to learn stuff. It's a little bit like we said on the other streams about you know, promises, that it kind of like forces you to do it in the proper way instead of just kind of like fudging over it, or I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I may even learn promises myself one day on exactly that basis.
Well, you know, the way I do it, I figured out once, put it on GitHub, and then I just copy and paste from my own GitHub. That's literally what I do. Like, I go to GitHub/Martin Steinfort and just copy and paste the shit every time.
Well, it's yeah. I mean, I guess it's the just as we're getting philosophical here. I think it's the something I really love about this. Not just the product, but I guess the community that's built up around it is just how it allows us all to kind of express our individual talents and capabilities. And obviously, I come at this from one kind of perspective and with certain kind of experience that makes the stuff I've gone through reasonably kind of, well, certainly interesting for me. I hope it's been somewhat interesting for people watching. I wouldn't say easy. You know, I have to work at this stuff as everybody does, but I think it's there's lots of resources out there to help you learn that stuff. And I will post links to the various sources I kind of refer to. But I guess what I really love is that there's other people like Lasse and yourself and Noland so many people, who coming in from more of a kind of coding background and really kind of nail that kind of aspect of the program and doing things there that I can only admire from the sidelines. So kudos to everybody, really.
I'm curious also, maybe, do you want to first of all, this is one of the findings you have, and this is amazing. You were hinting in the chat earlier when we chatted.
Pretty much all my other findings, I thought I was really pleased with myself, but you pretty much went through last week with just before Hannah stream. So I only discovered that having made the same discoveries myself earlier on today. So I'm afraid that's as much as I can offer you to help with the quest to light displaced vertices at the moment. Is a somewhat useful proxy light patch.
Well, like I said, the issue now we're having, what I hinted to on the other stream, and I think we should probably wrap it up in a bit, because this has been a long stream, but I knew this one's going to be exciting. I knew it, yeah. So definitely, yeah. But so basically the problem is that if you have a vertex displaced mesh, then you have to manually generate the normals for your display.
For sure. And worse than that, like often, like if you go into Unity kind of tutorials for doing this kind of thing, they'll do a lot of these calculations in the not in the shader, so they'll be done sort of in the equivalent of JavaScript effectively. So they'll do them as a pre-processing step prior to passing the deformed mesh into the shader.
Yeah.
The vertex displacement we're using is obviously using the vertex shader to do the displacing, so we don't have the advantage of working in JavaScript land. If we did, we could have like an array of all the vertices and be able to index into neighboring vertices to be able to calculate cross products and all sorts of things like that.
Well, I mean, that's basically what I can maybe show you guys quickly what and this may be for you, Matt, mostly actually, because it's so fucking raw that still move. It's still displacing vertices. But like, can you see my screen?
I can, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, just to show you guys. Hold on. Where do I have it? Okay. Generated normals. That sounds pretty good. Okay. Updated. And well, I haven't. The thing is that. I don't know. Now I think I have to prepare it a little better. I don't know. It's like right now I have to just. It's late, but basically I tried a few ways of how to generate normals, and it works. So basically, one way to do it is you calculate the derivative yourself. So if you have a sine wave, you just put the formula for the derivative, and there you go, right?
Yeah.
The other way you can do is what I told you in the chat already, is to basically sample a point with an offset, and that gives you the tangent and the bitangent. And then you can use the cross product to get the normal, which is essentially what the shader derivative is doing. And you can do that not in the vertex shader, but in screen space, and it works. And it works in the editor, but it doesn't work on mobile because of the low precision thing. That would be so beautiful, because this is like totally easy. You just take literally the well, maybe we can just do it really quick. So let's say we have let's just say, okay, so this is our guy, right? So this is Joni, and he has this beautiful scarf because he's social distancing and he's protecting himself. And I would say Shark Time for Joni. Let's see, what is it? Shark Time, yay! And so now the problem is if we take the texture here and put it in, I have to just get rid of this old stuff, so because I'm confusing myself. You see, it's just basically flat, right? There's no lighting on it. And even if we do the cross product, say, oh, hold on, you know what? Fuck it, I'm just gonna try really quick. I want to try. I'm so excited about the new tricks. I'm gonna try that. Okay, boom, object, then bounding box, right? Okay, then all of this shit is the same stuff. Then I'm gonna multiply that by vertex model view projection, model view, 0.1, boom, and then it complains. Oh, okay, this works. So then I'm gonna do a dot product of this normalized guy. You keep complaining, and somehow it doesn't work. Why is that?
I think you might have to do swizzle XYZ 0.
Which one? Which one though?
Bounding box output.
Oh, now it's oh, okay, yeah. Well, why is that? What is it?
So vector coordinates
Doesn't work.
or maybe just XYZ actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. But maybe you have to swizzle the Oh, now it works. Now it works. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Fuck it. It doesn't.
Oh god. So model view projection wants a vector 4 input, I think.
What's that?
Yeah, I think so. Because it's expecting a coordinate transform, and they're always they have a W component, don't they?
Oh, so okay. I have to put the one. Yeah. I see. That's way around. Yeah, okay. This works. So is it 0 or 1? I never told us on the last stream.
Not to 0, but try 1 if things aren't working.
Well, I do the same thing, but actually the point is like in GLS, if you have like like 1 is a direction and 0 is a point, or the other way around. That's the thing. Anyway, okay, so we want to normalize it, right? Normalize it. And then we want the dot product of this guy with, and now we're just gonna put in our donut real quick to see if it works. So here's the donut. And Joni, you have to eat a donut now.
And normalize after your multiply.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll figure that out in a second. So let's see if that works for now. And just put what do we want now? Torus. This should be our material. High-risk plane material. What was it? No. Oh god. This is like chaos, that scene. That's the problem. Oh shit. This is not good. I'm getting lost in my own bullshit here. Alright, keep focused. So we want a default material. Okay, we're gonna put the patch thing on it. Pass through, position, color. And then we want to try a color to see if that works. Okay. And then we want this torus to have this material. Okay, this is good. Yum donut. Alright, and now we want this dot product of our local normal. It's at the screen origin, so it doesn't matter. So this also complains because now we have to swizzle it back to just 3 coordinates for the dot product, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and then we have to swizzle it again to have an alpha for our color. And this is interesting. So is it doing something? No.
Maybe just look at the view transforms to make sure they're both the same space. They both need to be model view for both the vertex displacement and the
I see. Yeah, they are fine though. I mean, I have it in the patch, so all right. Well, okay, whatever. We figured out later, I suppose.
We will indeed. We won't be beaten.
But now, why is it? But is it giving me any value for the bounding box thing, or is it maybe getting confused? Well, yeah, it's doing something. Okay, that's good. Maybe not normalize it. See what happens. Okay, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna put a up vector for now to see if there's even any light showing up on my, because okay. So that works. So that means somewhere here the position stuff's not working.
Yeah, so you'll need to move the normalize to the other side of multiply, I think.
Oh yeah, that's actually probably the reason. Very good. Thank you for that. No. Worth a try. Okay, I have no idea why that's not working. I mean, my best guess is that this bounding box thing is not working? Because you had it, right? For you it worked.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I had the basic lighting sort of change.
See, if I put a plane, it works.
So we are
So
stuck
it
with
does.
objects.
It does not like a null object. It does not like null objects.
That
All
doesn't
right.
bode well for the camera.
Okay, so but basically back to our problem is that now we know donut works with a plane. That's great. But now if we look at the plane, the flag, and we put the same default material 0 thing in the color channel of the flag. Oh yeah. Because we are using the. Oh no, this is now too chaotic for a stream. Sorry, but basically, why you are even seeing the idea was that you should not see any shading, and then I would be like, well, because we have to generate our own normals, which we can do with the shader derivative, but it doesn't work on mobile. So we're back to base 1, and anyway, I have to prepare it a little better because the reason why we are even seeing shading right now is that this is a simulated thing from Cinema where I did the cloth simulation, and that obviously has normals. Anyway, fuck it. It's just too crazy for now.
Say that for the. I think another stream or two will do it, Mate. I'm sure you'll have it cracked.
Cool. Anyway, Shark Time. Oh no, why isn't Shark Time working? I know why. Here.
I should screenshot that.
It is in front of your face, so it looks like you're a shark. It looks like a face filter. Oh my god. All right. Oh, that's actually good. That's a good request. So last time, I don't know if you've seen it, we had Hannah play a trumpet solo, and so it seems that you have a musical instrument in your vicinity.
I've commented on in my various work Zoom streams.
So the request.
It's very fortunate for me that this is not plugged in.
It is.
Hold it up, just to no cables there. I'm sorry to say.
Okay. It's Wi-Fi.
I'm gonna have to. No, chance to be a fine thing. No, I have to disappoint you. I mean, obviously, I could share a link to my SoundCloud if you're really interested.
No, we're gonna rate another. Let's see who are we gonna? But okay, so let's wrap it up. It was amazing, and much Shark Times to be had on this stream. And what did we learn? We did learn that a null object is not liking the bounding box is not liking a null object. It's probably some division by 0 that gets kept by the compiler or something. But so that was actually an amazing trick because I was also wondering what this object output is for. And what else? Okay. So on the next stream we can talk about transformation matrices, which is actually the third option on the poll. That will be like the band stuff, and that actually ties in very nicely with the model view projection stuff.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly straightforward. So that's that. And we can talk a little bit about generating normals, which doesn't really work, but we can still talk about it. Why not? And we will probably talk about more artistic stuff next time also. Okay, but now we're gonna rate a channel. So maybe chat, can you let us know which channel you might know that you want to rate? So we had the cooking guy, the 3D guy who was cooking. Let's see what he's actually streaming. But he's doing some I don't know, some modeling, I suppose. But we did already rate his channel. Yeah, he's not cooking right now. And the last time we had someone doing Unreal stuff, which was cool because, let's see, what is it? 3D modeling. We can maybe do... Oh, hey, is there maybe an augmented reality channel that we can... I'm just gonna, do it together. Oh, that looks fun. Oh no, it's not live, unfortunately. So this is the that's the guy here, 3D guy. This guy. We already rated this channel already because this like he's streaming videos. Recommended. Let's see what else there's. Oh, hey Matt, did you already know log off? Oh, because you said in the chat.
No.
All right, guys. So let me know what should we do now, and otherwise I will just select something. Maybe some music stuff. Anyway, we're gonna rate this guy. Fuck it. So let's see. Indie produce. I don't know what he's doing, but we will see in a second. Why not learn some music production, right? So let's go rate. So yeah, again, this was a long stream. Oh, look, video feedback. Yeah, we joked about that on the last stream already. You know, we wish to have buffers. So yeah, guys. Thanks for having us. And see you next week, I suppose. It's interesting. The longer we do it, the more shit there's to talk about. All right. Say hi to music guy. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Maddie.
Hey, mate Steinforth. Thank you for the raid, bro. Was good, man. Thank you. We're just making like some... I don't know what we're making, actually. We're just making some weird shit.